Chapter 381. There were endless layers of gray fog. Within the gray fog were layers upon layers of mountains. The mountains looked as if they had been burned by fire. There was not a single blade of grass on the ground. Occasionally, one could see some bare tree trunks. It was as if they had stood on the barren mountain ridge for hundreds of millions of years without any signs of life. This was the scene Xia Pingan saw in the god-slaying bug world's spirit realm. He had been exploring the spirit realm for more than a month. The god-slaying bug world's spirit realm was like a barren planet shrouded in fog. There was no life on the ground. There were no humans or horseshoe mites. It was desolate everywhere. Of course, Xia Pingan had also gained something in the past month. He had confirmed a few of his previous guesses. The spirit realm was infinitely vast. As long as there was a physical world, there would be a corresponding spirit realm. Moreover, there should be different creatures in the spirit realm. At least, there should be plants, although only a few specimens of those plants were left. Another thing he could confirm was that every time he entered the spirit realm, the surrounding terrain and mountains were different. Because the green summit city on the giant turtle's back was constantly moving, the place where he entered the spirit realm from the spirit realm god temple was different every time. Xia Pingan guessed that the reason there were no horseshoe mites in the spirit realm was that the human spirits in the spirit realm were mostly summoners above the sixth sun realm. These summoners' spirits were very powerful and could control their own spiritual worlds to a certain extent. Horseshoe mites might not be able to invade them, so there were no horseshoe mites in the spirit realm here. In the barren hills, Xia Pingan found a damaged spirit husbandry castle. This spirit husbandry castle was exactly the same as the one that Xia Pingan had entered before, except that it was more damaged. The stone statues in the castle, the guards of the spirit husbandry castle, had been completely shattered. On the second floor of the spirit husbandry hall, 3 of the stone steels that inherited the skills of spirit husbandry had been destroyed, and the remaining 2 were somewhat damaged. In addition to wandering around the spirit realm, Xia Pingan had also wandered around the Green Summit City for more than a month. Then, Xia Pingan confirmed 2 things. The summoners who came to the god-slaying insect realm were all well prepared. There would be realm pearls for sale here, but only ordinary realm pearls were sold. There were no rare realm pearls for sale at all. Everyone who obtained rare realm pearls would either find a way to fuse with them themselves, keep them, or exchange them with some small groups of mutual trust. Xia Pingan had just arrived, so it was completely impossible for him to blend into those small groups in the Green Summit City. In addition to this, Xia Pingan confirmed the second thing. In the entire Green Summit City, there was only one person who could use the soul-splitting secret technique to create soul tools. After that person left the Green Summit City, there was no one else in the Green Summit City who could use the soul-splitting secret technique. The soul tool that Xia Pingan wanted was also impossible to find. It was also in this kind of wear and tear that the giant tortoise carried the Green Summit City. After flying for more than a month, they finally arrived at the undying sea of the god-slaying insect realm. We have arrived at the undying sea. Everyone who wants to leave the Green Summit City can leave from Gate 1 to Gate 4. The Green Summit City will stay in the undying sea for 3 days. After 3 days, the Green Summit City will head for the 100 Poisons Wasteland. The mechanical puppet's voice resounded in the sky above the Green Summit City. It was repeated 3 times like a loudspeaker, ensuring that everyone in the city could hear it. When the voice was repeated for the second time, Xia Pingan had already left the hotel he was staying in. After paying the room fee of more than 1,000 gold coins, he quickly walked towards Gate 3 of the Green Summit City. The Green Summit City's Gate 3 was on the giant tortoise's back, near the left forelimb. As soon as Xia Pingan walked out of Gate 3, he saw that the red-clothed mage from the 10,000 Gods sect was already waiting at the entrance of Gate 3 with his hands behind his back. For more than a month, the red-clothed mage had been sitting quietly at the marketplace, displaying the few realm pearls that people coveted. Of course, Xia Pingan was not the only summoner in the entire Green Summit City who was willing to take the risk to join the 10,000 Gods sect. When Xia Pingan arrived, there were already 6 people standing behind the red-clothed mage. Among the 6 people, there was a summoner who looked like a middle-aged couple standing together, a cold-faced young man with long hair and 2 blades on his back, a muscular bald man, a woman wearing a white dress and a white veil, and a charming woman wearing a green mage robe. Xia Pingan did not say anything and automatically stood in the line behind the summoner from the 10,000 Gods sect, waiting quietly. After a while, more summoners arrived one after another. After waiting for half an hour, there were already more than 20 summoners standing beside Xia Pingan. Each of them had their own characteristic. Xia Pingan looked gentle among these summoners and did not stand out at all. Alright, those who want to join our 10,000 God sect are almost all here. The red-clothed mage with his hands behind his back finally turned around and looked at the people standing behind him. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Liang Tian, a red-clothed deacon in the immortal city of the 10,000 Gods sect. My mission this time is to recruit disciples in Green Summit City who are willing to join the 10,000 Gods sect. You said before that once we join the 10,000 Gods sect, we will be able to obtain a Sage Master Realm Pearl and a Blacksmith Master Realm Pearl? A one-eyed mage in the line asked. Yes. Liang Tian smiled and looked at the one-eyed mage who asked the question, and simply admitted, I don't need to say more about the preciousness of a Sage Master Realm Pearl, but as long as an official disciple can join the 10,000 God sect, they will be given a Sage Master Realm Pearl. However, it's not that easy to join the 10,000 God sect. You are choosing the 10,000 God sect, but the 10,000 God sect is also choosing you. If you want to join the 10,000 God sect, you must pass the 10,000 God sect's test. What test? Everyone, follow me. After Liang Tian finished speaking, he turned around and directly flew down. Seeing the others fly up, Xia Pingan also blended into the crowd and silently flew down. After leaving the back of the giant tortoise, Xia Pingan discovered that below the giant tortoise was a vast blue sea. The surface of the sea was sparkling, and there were many small islands scattered all over the sea. There were buildings on those small islands. Many summoners who flew away from Green Summit City would land on those small islands, but some summoners directly flew into the sea. Liang Tian was silent and just flew forward. After flying for more than an hour, a huge island appeared on the sea level in front of them. Flying above the island, Xia Pingan saw a huge hole in the middle of the island. The hole was so dark that he couldn't see the bottom. Liang Tian turned around and flew towards the hole with the others. His figure was as fast as lightning, and the others followed him and flew down. After flying into the hole, they were greeted with a strong smell of sulfur. There were rugged rocks everywhere in the hole. After going a few thousand meters into the hole, they could see the flowing magma lake in the cave. After a series of twists and turns, the crowd kept flying down. Finally, after going hundreds of thousands of meters into the ground, a huge black city located underground appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Bonfires were lit on the city. On one of the city towers, Xia Pingan saw the words, Immortal City of Wan Xin Sect. There were summoners constantly flying into the Immortal City from the underground space. There were also summoners flying out of the Immortal City one by one and entering the surrounding underground space that extended in all directions. Liang Tian brought everyone to a plaza in the middle of the city. The summoners around the square were coming and going. They seemed to be used to the arrival of Xia Pingan and the others and didn't pay much attention to them. This is the Immortal City of the Wan Xin Sect. As long as you pass the test of the Wan Xin Sect, you can become an official disciple of the Wan Xin Sect. The official disciple of the Wan Xin Sect will receive a Sage Master Realm Pearl and a Blacksmith Realm Pearl. The Sage Master of the Wan Xin Sect will help you fuse the 2 Realm Pearls. To put it bluntly, The reason why the Wanshin sect is called the Wanshin sect is because many of the disciples of the Wanshin sect are powerful all-rounders among the summoners. They are unique. Liang Tian's words caused a slight commotion among the people who came with him. Your current status can only be considered as outer sect disciples who wish to join the 10,000 deities sect. The 10,000 deities sect's test for you is also very simple. In the abyss of this underground world, there is a worm nest. In that nest, there are countless mantis blade insects and devil flame insect. As long as you can kill enough insect tribe members and collect 200 reflection realm and 1 nether passage realm insect crystal, you will be qualified to join the 10,000 deities sect and officially become a disciple of the 10,000 deities sect. Chapter 382. Insect Crystal? The black crystal that Xia Pingon obtained from killing the mantis blade bug was an insect crystal. That item seemed to be very precious and was very useful to summoners who were at the 6th sun realm and above. Other than Xia Pingon, all the summoners who wanted to join the Wanshin sect were at the 6th sun realm. When they heard that to become an official disciple of the Wanshin sect, they needed 200 reflection realm and 1 ethereal opening realm insect crystal. Many of them had strange looks in their eyes. Reflection realm insects were not easy to kill, let alone ethereal opening realm insects. Furthermore, reflection realm insect crystals required 200 at once. As for ethereal opening realm insect crystals, although they only needed 1 insect crystal, the difficulty was still very high. However, if they only needed insect crystals, the insect crystals that you bought or exchanged are useless. You have to kill the insect crystals yourself. The Wanshin sect has a secret technique that can distinguish which insect crystals were killed by you and which were killed by others. Even if you work together to kill the insect race, the insect crystal will only recognize one person. The path to becoming a god is filled with countless heroes fighting for it. If you can't even pass this stage, you don't have the right to become a disciple of the Wanshin sect. Why do we have to kill the insects here? Don't the insect crystals from killing the insects from other places count? Someone in the group immediately asked. Killing the insects from other places doesn't count. As for the reason, it's because there's a space tunnel in the insect nest underground. This space tunnel leads to the Wanshin planet where the founder of the Wanshin sect is from. The insects here will invade the Wanshin planet through this space tunnel. Therefore, killing the insects here is equivalent to opening up a battlefield behind the enemy. It will greatly alleviate the situation of the insect race invading the Wanshin planet. Liang Tian explained. So, the so-called outer disciples of the Wanshin sect are no different from bounty hunters? Someone said arrogantly. Wrong. If you are a bounty hunter of the god-slaying bug realm, no matter how many bugs you kill, no one will give you a Saint Master's realm pearl. However, the 10,000 deities clan will give you one. In addition to these precious realm pearls, if you advance to the Nether Passage realm or the Energy Shaping realm in the future, as long as you have enough contributions, the 10,000 deities clan will provide the god's spring for these 2 realms. This is the shortcut to becoming a god. Apart from the 10,000 deities clan, you will not meet any other clan or force that can easily provide you with these resources when you travel throughout the god-slaying bug realm. Liang Tian's words made everyone speechless. That was indeed the case. The Wanshin sect had already laid out the rules and the price. If one wanted to obtain the Saint Master's realm bead and the cultivation resources, one had to show one's worth and ability. It was impossible to rely on petty tricks and tricks here. Only battle results could measure one's merit. This was also the reason why the 10,000 deities clan was called the 10,000 death clan. Just entering the clan was enough to make countless summoners bleed and die. If one didn't accumulate enough bug crystals and merits, then once one died, all the merits would be lost. Those who could pass this test must be the strongest among the summoners. Excuse me, we are now considered outer disciples of the Wanshin sect. Does the Wan Shin sect have any requirements for outer disciples? Seeing that no one spoke, Xia Pingan cleared his throat and asked politely. The Wan Shin sect has no requirements for outer disciples. You can come and go as you please in the Immortal City. The rules of the Immortal City are very simple. A life for a life and a debt for a debt. There aren't so many rules and regulations. Liang Tian glanced at Xia Pingan. He still had a deep impression of this promising youth, who was the first to stand up and express his intention to join the Wan Shin sect. His attitude became gentler. I remember that you are called Chui Li, right? Yes, I am Chui Li. Xia Pingan nodded. Yes, outer disciples of the Wan Shin sect can leave the Wan Shin sect at any time. If you feel that the entrance test is too difficult to complete after working here for a period of time, you can leave the Immortal City at any time to explore the outside world. The Wan Shin sect won't stop you. If you come back in the future, you will still be considered an outer disciple of the Wan Shin sect, and can start over. However, if you advance to the Seven Sun realm outside and still haven't completed the entrance test, then you can no longer become a disciple of the Wan Shin sect. Okay, understood. Xia Pingan nodded. The rules of the Wan Shin sect were quite humane. Because the entrance test was very difficult, the outer disciples were given a lot of freedom. If they felt that they couldn't complete it and the pressure was too great, they could leave at any time. Everyone would part on good terms. The tower beside you is the Hall of Stewards of the Wan Shin sect in the Immortal City. The Hall of Stewards is in charge of all affairs in the Immortal City. After you obtain the insect crystal, you can go to the Hall of Stewards to register and confirm. As for the rest, you will need money to eat, drink, and stay in the Immortal City. However, living here is cheaper than living in the Green Summit City. You can earn the money yourselves. Everyone is responsible for themselves. If you want to embark on the path of becoming a god, then work hard on your own. After saying this last sentence, Liang Tian turned around and left. The group of summoners standing in the square looked at each other. Damn, they won't even treat us to a meal? Aren't they too stingy? A guy shouted. I thought that they would at least arrange a place for us to stay. I didn't expect that we still have to find a place to stay. Looks like it's not easy to be an outer disciple of the Wan Shin sect. I told you that it's not that easy to obtain a Sage Master's Realm Pearl. Everyone, it's rare for us to join the Wan Shin sect together. It's considered fate. Why don't we get to know each other so that we can take care of each other in the future? There were only a few people left who knew each other, and most of them dispersed. Xia Pingan didn't stay to get to know his companions. Instead, he walked away and started to wander around the Immortal City. Summoners in the Sixth Sun realm were all solitary beasts and experienced people. Instead of forcefully gathering with strangers, it was more reassuring to move alone. The Immortal City was located underground and didn't have any natural light. There were either braziers or lamps everywhere in the city. For ordinary people, this environment was very depressing. However, for summoners, once they activated their night vision, the Immortal City and the huge underground cave in which the Immortal City was located would be lit up. It wouldn't be so depressing and depressing. All the buildings in the city were made of black or gray rock. They were simple and unadorned, but also heavy and thick. They looked like they had been around for a long time. On both sides of the main streets in the city, there were streams drawn from underground water. In those streams, there were also small catfish living in the underground river. There were also many strange underground plants growing in the flower beds in the Immortal City. There were mushrooms as tall as a person, ferns the size of water lilies, and other plants with lantern-like flowers. Those flowers could even emit light. There were summoners walking hurriedly everywhere in the city. There were also all kinds of strange summon creatures and puppets. There were all kinds of shops in the city. Xia Pingan strolled around the city and saw a few shops. Those shops sold realm pearls, but they were all ordinary realm pearls. There were basically no rare realm pearls. There were also many shops selling magic tools in the city. There were also many magic tools in the shop. The prices of the magic tools here were about the same as those in Green Summit City. When Xia Pingon came to a shop selling magic tools called Heavenly King Square, he was surprised to find that the shop was very lively. There were actually many summoners queuing up. This situation made Xia Pingon slightly stunned. Seeing a round-faced summoner queuing up at the side, Xia Pingon couldn't help but ask, "Excuse me, brother, why are you queuing up here?" "We are registering here. Grandmaster Fire Crow is here. He can inject a divided soul into a magic tool and upgrade it to a soul tool." Hearing that this place could upgrade a magic tool to a soul tool, Xia Pingon's mind shook and he quickly asked, "Sai, Grandmaster Fire Crow's energy is limited. I heard that every time he upgrades a magic tool, Grandmaster Fire Crow will consume a lot of energy. Therefore, he can only forge a soul tool for one divided soul every month. If you queue up here, after about 4 to 5 years, it will be your turn. Without a soul tool in hand, it's too inconvenient to deal with those insects. F***CK, it takes 4 to 5 years to queue up normally?" Xia Pingon was shocked. The little idea that had just arisen was extinguished in an instant. Soul armaments were just too popular. After asking again, there seemed to be soul tools being auctioned in Undying City occasionally. However, the auction price was daunting. After wandering around Undying City, he found a shop and sold the ordinary realm bead in his hand. After exchanging it for 2,800 gold coins, Xia Pingon found an ordinary hotel in the south of Undying City. He rented a secluded small courtyard for 2,000 gold coins a month and settled down. After summoning the Black Dragon and Child of Fortune and checking that there was no problem with this small courtyard, Xia Pingon habitually went to the Summoner's Underground training room and entered the Spirit World Shrine. He wanted to see what the Spirit World of Undying City was like. After taking a step out of the Golden Arched door, Xia Pingon was stunned. The Spirit World in front of him was a huge underground space filled with gray fog. Above and below this underground space were huge stalactites that looked like bamboo shoots of various colors. What was even more astonishing was that in this huge space, there were 2 incomparably grand ancient metal arched doors towering over 1,000 meters tall. Those 2 metal arched doors were facing each other from a distance, one in the south and one in the north. The decorative patterns on the arched doors were filled with an aura of vicissitudes. In the 2 arched doors there was a whirlpool-like white light flickering. Who knew where it led to? Xia Pingon stood in front of those 2 arched doors. His figure was as short as an ant, insignificant. What kind of situation was this? Xia Pingon was completely stunned. After wandering around the desolate spirit world of the god-slaying insect world for more than a month, he originally thought that there was nothing new in the spirit world under Undying City. It would be a blessing if there were 1 or 2 horned insects. He didn't expect that once he came out, this spirit world would give him such a huge surprise. Chapter 2 updated at night. Chapter 383. There were 2 huge arched doors on both sides of Xia Pingon. One of them was over 1,000 meters away from him, while the other was over 2,000 meters away. Xia Pingon suppressed the excitement in his heart. He passed through the thick fog and ran to look at the arched door that was closer to him. He circled around the arched door, and then went to look at the arched door that was further away from him. He circled around the arched door once more. The 2 arched doors were basically the same in size, shape, and the vicissitudes of time. However, the patterns on the arched doors were somewhat different. The patterns on the top of the arched doors were like spiraling Milky Way. They were like vines connected to fruits or the orbits of stars. They were full of mysterious beauty. Xia Pingon counted. The arched door closest to him had 9 strange patterns, while the ones on the other side had a total of 12. This should be the special mark of this door, but he could not understand it. In addition to the strange patterns, the white light in the middle of the two arched doors was exactly the same. There was a vortex in the white light. These two arched doors in the spiritual realm should lead to other places in the spiritual realm. After the excitement, Xia Pingan faced the two arched doors and hesitated. He was faced with a choice. Should he go through one of the arched doors to see what was on the other side? Looking at the arched doors, they were very similar in shape and style to the golden arched door that he used to enter the spiritual realm. He could enter and exit the golden arched door in the spiritual realm. Therefore, he should be able to enter and exit the two arched doors in front of him. The only danger was that Xia Pingan did not know what was on the other side of the arched door and where it led to. What if there were unimaginable dangers on the other side? After some deliberation, driven by great curiosity, Xia Pingan still wanted to enter the arched door and take a look. Xia Pingan clenched the longsword in his hand. He was ready to launch the killer bird sword and stepped into the arched door that was closest to him. With a flash of his body, he entered the white light and disappeared in an instant. Like passing through layers of gauze, a white light flashed before his eyes. The white light was somewhat dazzling, so Xia Pingan closed his eyes. When the dazzling white light disappeared, Xia Pingan opened his eyes and found himself in a completely unfamiliar place. The tall arched door was behind him. The arched door was on a stone platform that was 1 meter above the ground. It was like a monument that stood on the huge stone platform. The stone platform was overgrown with weeds, and what extended from the stone platform seemed to be a huge square. The square was empty, and on both sides of the square stood a row of stone statues of the Spirit Fort Guards. The stone statues of the Spirit Fort Guards were old, but they still looked intact. What shocked Xia Pingan was that he saw a layer of light green moss on the stone statues of the Spirit Fort Guards. Moss, a living thing. Although it was only a faint touch of green, Xia Pingan's spirits were lifted. It was like a traveler who had walked in the desert for a long time and saw an oasis. God was pitiful. Xia Pingan pointed at the spiritual realm. He thought that the spiritual realm was gray or black, and that he could not see any other life except for insects. He did not expect that the spiritual realm of this world seemed to have retained some vitality. When he saw the intact stone statues of the Spirit Fort Guards, Xia Pingan's hanging heart immediately relaxed. In any case, since there were Spirit Fort Guards guarding this place, it meant that this place was still considered safe. As far as the eye could see, there were towering city walls, fortresses, arrow towers, and fortresses stretching out from the huge square in front of them. He seemed to be inside a fortress. Xia Pingan sucked in a breath of cold air. He raised his head again. This was the sky of the spirit realm. The stars were bright, but among the astral spirits that filled the sky, there were only white stars. There were very few colorful astral spirits. This meant that those astral spirits were ordinary people. There were very few summoners. Damn! Looking up at the sky full of astral souls, Xia Pingan was almost moved to tears. God was pitiful. There was finally a way out. He finally found a place with more ordinary people. There were many ordinary astral souls in the sky here, so there must be insects. As long as there were insects, his soul power would continue to increase, and he could continue to enjoy the benefits of increasing his soul power. Strangely, the spiritual realm here didn't seem to correspond to Yuanqiu because the ratio of summoners to warriors in Yuanqiu world was very high. In any spiritual realm in Yuanqiu world, when one looked up, the sky was filled with astral souls. There were too many astral souls of various colors. It wouldn't be as monotonous as the one in front of him. In the sky in front of him, there were very few colorful astral souls. A few of them were pale yellow. A pale yellow astral soul meant that the cultivation of the astral soul was below the one-sun realm. At first glance, it was obvious that the cultivation of the one-sun realm was very low. Even the yellow astral souls that represented the one-sun realm were almost nowhere to be seen. This place was completely incomparable to the Yuan Qiu world. Almost visible to the naked eye, there were a few astral souls entwined with black insects in the sky above his head. Xia Pingan did not know where this was, but for a spirit herder like him, this was simply heaven. Sure enough, he made the right bet. There was another world behind that arch. Xia Pingan almost wanted to sing loudly. Yes, this place looked like a huge fortress. It was much more advanced than the spirit-herding castles he had seen, but the architectural style was somewhat similar. It was just that there was no one in this castle, and he did not know where it was. Xia Pingan wanted to explore this uninhabited fortress to see if there was anything good here. Suddenly, an old sigh sounded in his ears. Sigh. How many years has it been? I didn't expect a spirit herder to walk out from behind this spirit gate. Am I seeing things? Didn't the spirit mountain collapse long ago? Didn't the Lord of the Dreamscape die long ago? All the spirit herders in the Yuan Qiu world have died, and their corpses have been silent for tens of thousands of years. The inheritance of the spirit realm has long been cut off. Who are you? Following this voice, on the ground in front of Xia Pingan, a ghost-like figure flashing with a pale white light drilled out from the ground. It stood in front of Xia Pingan and stared straight at Xia Pingan. The figure's body was translucent. Its snow-white hair and beard hung down to its waist. One could vaguely see the armor of a spirit herder on its body. Its entire body was in between reality and illusion, as if it would dissipate at any time. With the appearance of this translucent figure, the eyes of the silent spirit castle guards around the square began to emit a dangerous red light. The stone statues of the spirit castle guards turned their heads and stared at Xia Pingan. Chapter 384. Looking at the translucent figure that suddenly emerged from the ground, flashing with white light, and the stone statues of the guards of the spirit castle suddenly became dangerous. Although Xia Pingan was a little surprised, he did not panic. He only released the breath of the Zhanwu sword on his body. The Zhanwu sword was ready to be used as it stared at the translucent figure. Zhanwu sword. Zhanwu sword. The translucent figure looked at the aura on Xia Pingan's body and was slightly excited. You're right. The spirit mountain has collapsed, the Lord of the Dream Realm has fallen, and the former spirit herders of the Yuanqiu world have all become skeletons. At least, after I entered the spiritual realm, I did not meet any spirit herders who survived. However, the legacy of the spirit herders has not been lost. After I merged with 22 Dream Masters' realm pearls, the spiritual realm temple appeared in the secret mandala. Then, I was able to enter the spiritual realm and learn the secrets of the spiritual realm. You merged with 22 Dream Masters' realm pearls? Of course, otherwise we would not be here. The translucent figure looked at Xia Pingan, suddenly opened his hands, and laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, the gods have eyes. It seems that there is still a chance for the spiritual realm. My brothers, do you see? How many years has it been? A new spirit herder has come. The legacy of the spirit herders has not been lost. The translucent figure laughed wildly and cried again. He even ran around the huge square crazily, so fast that his figure could not be seen clearly. At this time, the spirit castle guards in the square all closed their eyes and turned their heads, turning back into silent stone statues. The translucent figure turned into a stream of light and ran around the square a few times before suddenly standing in front of Xia Pingan. What's your name? Xia Pingan thought about it and felt that there was no need for him to use an alias in the spiritual realm. This was because his current spiritual body was his original appearance. The secret technique of transformation could change the physical appearance, but the spiritual body's appearance could not be changed. My name is Xia Pingan. How should I address you? Sigh, I don't know how many tens of thousands of years have passed. Names have become meaningless to me. I've almost forgotten them. The translucent figure sighed. I've been the spirit master of this spirit fortress for tens of thousands of years. My spirit body was destroyed in battle, and now I can only continue to guard this place in this half-spirit body state, to prevent the spirit husbandry fortress from being invaded by the zombies and insects outside. I'm neither human nor ghost now, so you can call me Elder Mu. Hearing Elder Mu's words, Xia Pingan secretly guessed that the so-called spirit husbandry should be a high-level spirit husbandry profession. The scale of this spirit husbandry fortress seemed to be much larger than the spirit husbandry fortresses he had seen before. Elder Mu must have been a very powerful person to have been able to guard this place for so many years. Elder Mu, may I ask what a zombie is? You came from the spirit realm of the Yuanxia world. Have you never seen a zombie puppet? Elder Mu asked. I've only seen insects in the Yuanxia world. What are zombies? I've never seen one. Xia Pingan shook his head. No wonder the spirit realm of the Yuanxia world was the main battlefield. Since the collapse of the Spirit Mountain, the spirit realm of the Yuanxia world should have been completely destroyed. There's no spiritual energy and it's barren, so only insects can survive. Elder Mu muttered to himself, then explained, the zombies I'm talking about are the creatures of the spirit realm that have been corroded and poisoned by the demon Qi. Some spirit husbandry and spirit husbandry masters will also degenerate into zombies. Come with me, I'll show you. After speaking, Elder Mu turned around and floated in the direction of the fortress. Out of curiosity, Xia Pingan followed Elder Mu and walked towards the fortress. As Xia Pingan walked, he looked around. The spirit husbandry fortress was empty, like a ghost town. However, the fortress was well preserved and not seriously damaged. Next to the square were empty military camp. Inside the fortress, there were stone statues of the guards of the spirit castle. Suddenly, Xia Pingan's eyes twitched. After passing through the square, he saw a tall gray building on the other side of the square. There were 3 words at the entrance of the building: Spirit Husbandry Palace. The style of the Spirit Husbandry Palace was very similar to the Spirit Husbandry Hall in the Spirit Husbandry Castle, where one could learn the Spirit Husbandry mystic skills. Through the open door of the Spirit Husbandry Palace, Xia Pingan could vaguely see tall black stone tablets in the Spirit Husbandry Palace. Spirit Husbandry Hall. Xia Pingan muttered to himself as he stared at the 3 words on the Spirit Husbandry Hall. When Elder Mu, who was floating in front of him, heard Xia Pingan's muttering, his body suddenly stiffened and he stopped in his tracks. He turned around and looked at Xia Pingan in disbelief. What did you just say? Xia Pingan was stunned for a moment before he replied subconsciously, Spirit Husbandry Palace. Xia Pingan said as he pointed at the Spirit Husbandry Palace. Isn't it written on the palace? Elder Mu's body and voice trembled imperceptibly at this moment. He stared straight at Xia Pingan. You recognize the words on it? Yes, isn't it written on it? Spirit Husbandry Palace. Xia Pingan said before he suddenly realized that the 3 words on the Spirit Husbandry Palace were also in Xiaozhuan. He had seen so many Xiaozhuan characters on the realm bead that he was already used to it. When he saw the same words, he instinctively reacted. Elder Mu stared at Xia Pingan for a while with a weird look. As he stared at Xia Pingan, tears flowed out of his eyes. Even the luster on his translucent body became slightly disordered, which made Xia Pingan's hair stand on end. He didn't know what was wrong with Elder Mu. After a while, Elder Mu wiped his tears and said, "Follow me." Then, he continued to lead Xia Pingan up the wall of the fortress. After walking for a while, they passed by a tall building with 3 Xiaozhuan characters on it. Elder Mu stopped and turned around to look at Xia Pingan expectantly. Then, he pointed at the 3 slightly damaged Xiaozhuan characters on the building and asked Xia Pingan, "Do you know what those 3 characters mean?" Xia Pingan gritted his teeth and went all out. Those 3 characters should be Spiritual Weapon Warehouse. However, the left side of the character Spiritual Weapon Warehouse, and a small part of the character Warehouse, below the character Spiritual Weapon Warehouse, are damaged. However, I can still see them. The luster on Elder Mu's body became slightly disordered again. However, he didn't say anything else and continued to lead Xia Pingan forward. A few minutes later, Elder Mu led Xia Pingan up the tower of the fortress. From the tower, they went up the wall and arrived at the top of the wall. Xia Pingan finally saw what was outside the wall of the fortress. Outside the wall of the fortress was also a wilderness. However, the wilderness here was overgrown with weeds and many trees. However, the weeds and the leaves of the trees weren't pure green. Instead, they were slightly black, as if they had been contaminated by something. In the wilderness, there were more than 10 weird figures wandering more than 400 meters away from the fortress wall. The reason why the figures were strange was because they didn't look like humans. Instead, they were humanoid creatures that were less than a meter tall. They had green skin, pointed ears, and a large head. Their bodies were thin and shriveled. These creatures were holding short swords and daggers in their hands. Among them, there were 2 humanoid creatures with half of their bodies showing their black skeletons. However, they were still wandering in the wilderness. They wanted to approach the stronghold, but they were afraid, so they could only wander in the wilderness. Are those zombies that have been corroded and poisoned by demon chi? That's part of the zombies. Elder Mu nodded. His eyes were filled with sorrow as he looked at the wilderness outside. They were originally the most adorable creatures in the world, but now they have all become bloodthirsty monsters. I can feel that their souls are imprisoned in their depraved bodies. They are filled with pain and desire to be free. At this moment, my body can no longer leave the fortress. Can you help them and free them? How can I help them? Xia Pingan scratched his head. Use the sword in your hand. The killer bird sword? The killer bird sword is used to deal with insects. It's useless against them. They only need the sword. If your body and soul haven't been corroded and poisoned by demon chi, then you have the ability to free them. Xia Pingan understood. You always want me to prove myself? Only a clean body and soul that haven't been contaminated by demon chi can receive the gift of their souls after they are freed. A gift? Thinking of the increase in soul power after killing the insects, Xia Pingan licked his lip. He looked at the zombies in the wilderness and grinned. That's good. I was just about to give it a try. Elder Mu didn't say anything. He just pointed his finger and the small door at the bottom of the fortress opened. It was just enough for one person to enter and exit. Haha, leave that door open for me when I come back. Xia Pingan laughed as he flicked his flying on's longsword and jumped down from the 20-meter-high wall of the stronghold. As he landed in midair, he slashed the wall with his longsword, causing sparks to fly in all directions. Xia Pingan's body slowed down at once. After that, he stepped on the wall and pounced on the nearest puppet worm like a ferocious tiger coming down from the mountain. It took less than a minute for Xia Pingan to cover a distance of a few hundred meters. A zombie saw Xia Pingan running out of the fortress and made strange noises. Then, it rushed over. It wasn't slow at all. When it reached Xia Pingan, it stabbed the dagger in its hand at Xia Pingan's lower abdomen. Xia Pingan waved his longsword and the head of the green-skinned zombie flew up. When the zombie's head flew up, Xia Pingan saw a faint black gas drifting out of the zombie's body and dissipating. Then, the zombie's body fell to the ground and turned gray in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it turned into fine sand. A light green shadow appeared on the gray corpse of the zombie. In the shadow, it was the zombie's face that was relieved of a burden. However, there was no longer any hostility and madness on its face. Instead, it was peaceful. The shadow bowed slightly to Xia Pingan, leaving behind a golden light spot and then dissipating. Then, that golden light spot, like a firefly, flew toward Xia Pingan's chest and sank into Xia Pingan's chest. It made Xia Pingan's body warm up. This was soul power. It was about 0.1/. Xia Pingan's spirit was greatly lifted. Killing zombies was the same as killing insect. It could increase one's soul power. The difference was that killing zombies only required a long sword and didn't consume soul power. The other zombies also ran toward Xia Pingan. Ha ha, come at me all of you! Xia Pingan laughed heartily. He brandished his sword and charged forwards. In just a few minutes, the dozen or so wandering corpses outside the stronghold had all been killed by Xia Pingan. Xia Pingan's soul force had also increased by more than 1/. After killing the zombies, Xia Pingan stared at the two insects in the sky. Xia Pingan waved his hand, and the astral soul that was entangled by the two mythical horned beetles seemed to have received a summons, and descended from the sky. The two mythical horned beetles also discovered Xia Pingan, and fiercely rushed towards him. Killer insect sword! Xia Pingan roared. A flying light left Xia Pingan's palm and turned into a giant blue sword in the air. It slashed through the void. With just one move, 2 slashes, the two insects were cut down from the void at the same time. They turned into black smoke and dissipated. 2 balls of golden light entered Xia Pingan's chest. After many months, Xia Pingan once again tasted the soul power of insect. The 2 astral projections each shone a brilliance on Xia Pingan's body. Xia Pingan now had 2 more astral projections to guard. After getting rid of the nearby zombie puppets and the 2 horseshoe mites, Xia Pingan was still not satisfied, but there were no more targets nearby that were worth his time. After having the 2 astral souls that he had just rescued from the nightmare return to the sky, Xia Pingan directly summoned another astral soul that was having a good dream and entered the dreamland of that astral soul. Because Xia Pingan didn't know which world this spiritual realm corresponded to until now. However, the contents of the dreams of those astral projections could help Xia Pingan peek into which world those astral projections lived in. The owner of that astral projection was a 30-years-old middle-aged man. In his dreamland, it was a beautiful beach. He was watching the beautiful sunset and the frolicking crowd on the beach with his beloved. Regarding the intrusion of Xia Pingan, the owner of the dreamland was still immersed in his dream and didn't notice it at all. As soon as Xia Pingan entered and saw the world in the man's dream, he was stunned. This was because he seemed to have seen this beautiful beach before. The surfboards and sailboats used by the crowd on the beach, as well as the words on the signboard of the snack shop not far away, were all so familiar. He didn't feel unfamiliar at all. "Honey, when do you think we can buy a beautiful house on the beach and live here?" "Soon, as long as there's no space invasion and those magical creatures are eliminated, we can live like this," the owner of the dreamland said as he tightly hugged the woman beside him. "Yesterday, our head told us a piece of news. Our summoners in Hua country have already established a joint command with those in the Great Fire country and are clearing out the remaining magical creatures. Now, only Europe and Africa are in trouble, but there won't be any space invasion on Earth for a long time in the future. Earth, Hua country, Great Fire country, Europe, Africa. This is the spirit realm of the Earth I came from. No wonder the beach in front of me looks so familiar. This beach should be the most famous tourist island in Hua country, in the wilderness outside the fortress." Xia Pingan withdrew from the dreamland of the astral soul and stood there in a daze. He almost couldn't believe what he had just discovered. Illusion, was it an illusion? Could it be that he missed his old friends and Xia Ning so much that he unknowingly affected that person's dreamland? Spirit herders had a strong ability to control the dreams of these ordinary people. Sometimes they could influence the contents of other people's dreams with just a thought, so Xia Pingan couldn't believe it for a moment. He took a deep breath and summoned another astral soul in the dreamland and entered that astral soul. The person in that astral soul was dreaming that he was eating a big meal in a restaurant, and his so-called big meal was spicy crayfish and roast chicken. The environment of the restaurant in the dreamland was also in Hua country. Xia Pingan withdrew from the astral soul's dreamland again, and the expression on his face was one of shock. That's right, the soul-seeking technique. Xia Pingan slapped his head hard. For a spirit herder, the soul-seeking technique came in handy if he wanted to lock onto and find a particular astral soul in the vast sea of stars. As soon as the soul-seeking technique was used, Xia Pingan immediately sensed the person he was looking for, Xia Ning. Xia Ning was in the dreamland and was immediately locked onto and sensed by Xia Pingan's soul-seeking technique. It was just that Xia Ning's astral soul was rather far away from here, about 10,000 kilometers to the east. This was really Earth's spirit realm. He actually used this method to come back. P.S. I'll send the chapter first, the next chapter will be updated at night. Chapter 385. Besides Xia Ning, Xia Pingan also sensed the astral souls of Mo Yanshao, Anqing, Li Yunzhou, Guowei, and a few of his former colleagues and friends. Those astral souls were in the east, and Anqing's astral soul was very close to Xia Ning. The two of them seemed to be together. The other astral souls that he didn't sense shouldn't be in a sleeping state. This kind of excitement was completely indescribable. Xia Pingan originally thought that he would never see these friends again, as well as Xia Ning. He didn't expect to reunite in such a way. In the same world, they were in the material world, while he was in the spiritual world on the other side of the material world. These two worlds were like two sides of a coin. To be honest, at this time, Xia Pingan's mind was in a mess. He wanted to say many things, but he didn't know where to start. In the end, after standing blankly in the wilderness for a while, Xia Pingan used the dream relaying technique to give Xia Ning a dream, telling Xia Ning that he was fine and that she didn't need to worry. The dream relaying technique was a secret technique that could be used by spirit herders as long as they were in the same space and could lock onto the position of the other's astral soul. Of course, the dream relaying technique was only in one direction, like sending a video message. After giving the dream, Xia Pingan returned to the stronghold. Elder Mu was already standing at the entrance of the stronghold, waiting for him. Earlier, the stronghold had only opened a small gate, but now the entire stronghold's gates were open. The stronghold's gate was very wide, allowing 4 carriages to run side by side. Elder Mu was at the gate of the stronghold, looking at Xia Pingan with an indescribable language. "Greetings, Lord of the Dream Realm." To Xia Pingan's surprise, Elder Mu actually knelt down before him and bowed deeply when he saw him again. "Ah, Elder Mu, what are you doing? Get up." Xia Pingan, who was still immersed in the excitement of meeting Xia Ning and the others, was suddenly awakened by Elder Mu's actions. He wanted to pull Elder Mu up from the ground, but when he stretched out his hand, it passed through Elder Mu's body that was suffused with white light. Elder Mu's body was a piece of nothingness, and he couldn't help it. Old Mu raised his head to look at Xia Pingan. It was only then that Xia Pingan discovered that at some unknown time, Old Mu's face was covered in tears as he howled towards the heavens. "The heavens have eyes. After my spirit world was destroyed countless years ago, the new master of the dreamland, the spirit world monarch, has finally arrived. Is there something wrong with this old man's head?" Seeing Elder Mu's agitated expression, Xia Pingan didn't know what to say. "Elder Mu, are you mistaken? I'm just a spirit shepherd who was lucky enough to enter the spiritual realm. I'm not the lord of the dreamscape or the lord of the spiritual realm." "Stand up and speak." Elder Mu stood up and wiped his tears. He calmed himself down a little, but he still shook his head resolutely and stubbornly said, "I'm not mistaken. Since ancient times, everyone in the spiritual realm knew that only the Lord of the spiritual realm could grasp the spiritual mountain divine text. Your Majesty, you recognized the divine text in the spirit husbandry hall and the spiritual weapon vault. Furthermore, you were able to absorb the soul power of the horseshoe beetles and zombies after killing them. This means that your majesty hasn't been tainted by the demonic qi. There's no mistake. Xia Pingan felt goosebumps all over his body when he heard Elder Mu address him as Your Majesty. It turned out that Xiaozhuan was known as the spiritual mountain divine text in the spiritual realm. Only the Lord of the spiritual realm's bloodline could grasp it. If that was the case, the spirit herder named Sujio that he had encountered before should be a descendant of the master of the spirit realm. No wonder his bones were golden. Previously, he thought that Xiaozhuan was very common in the spiritual realm and didn't pay much attention to it. It seemed like that wasn't the case. In other words, those who could grasp Xiaozhuan were all royalty of the spiritual realm and descendants of the god. Xia Pingan recalled this information in his mind and was slightly stunned. He then said, "What if someone else told me? The spiritual realm of the Yuanxia world is already a dead land. After so many years, not a single spirit shepherd has survived. Even if your majesty entered the spiritual realm's fortress in the Yuanxia world, no one told your majesty. How would your majesty know what those divine texts mean?" Elder Mu shook his head. Being addressed as Your Majesty was too headache-inducing. Xia Pingan shook his head. Ahem, don't you know it too? I don't know many divine texts. There are only a few that have been passed down since ancient times. Now, Your Majesty is the only spirit shepherd in the entire spiritual realm. At the same time, Your Majesty also grasps the spiritual mountain's divine text. According to the rules of our spiritual realm, Your Majesty is the spiritual realm's monarch, the Lord of Dreams. You have to shoulder the heavy responsibility of inheriting the spirit shepherd's orthodoxy and revitalizing our spiritual realm. Seeing Elder Mu's burning gaze staring at him, Xia Pingan felt a little dizzy. Accidents kept happening one after another. Xia Pingan smiled bitterly and rubbed his face. I'm only a beginner spirit shepherd now. The heavy responsibility you mentioned is a little too far for me. It's not far at all. As long as Your Majesty can still fight and absorb soul power, we have hope, Elder Mu said seriously as he stared at Xia Pingan. A five-sun realm summoner who was chased by the Blood Demon Church to the point of having nowhere else to go, and an old man who lived like a ghost in the spiritual realm's fortress, wanted to dominate the spiritual realm? And revitalize the spiritual realm? Such a combination couldn't even be considered a grassroots team. Those who wanted to cause trouble casually put together a grassroots team that was 10 times stronger than this and Your Majesty? This title is too shameful. Sigh, but there's no one else here. As long as you like, you can treat it as a child playing house. You can call me whatever you want. Ahem, Elder Mu, do you have any plans to save the spiritual realm? Xia Pingan asked. Elder Mu frowned and thought for a while before shaking his head. Not at the moment. Even if I did, with Your Majesty's current strength, I'm afraid you can't do anything. Therefore, the most important thing now is for Your Majesty to become stronger as soon as possible. So you don't have one either. Xia Pingan rubbed his face and suddenly thought of a question. Speaking of strength, I have a question that I would like to ask you. Please speak, Your Majesty. I've killed some horseshoe pests before and realized that my soul power had increased by a lot. After my soul power increased, my physical strength in the real world also increased. Is there a certain connection between the two? Indeed. Our physical body in the material world can only exist by relying on the spirit body. Soul power can strengthen the spirit body, and when the spirit body is strong, it will release the powerful strength of the physical body bit by bit. All spirit shepherds are very powerful existences in the material world. Can the soul power of us spirit shepherds in the material world be injected into magic tools to upgrade them to soul tools? Your Majesty, are you talking about the soul refinement technique? The soul refinement technique? Xia Pingan was stunned for a moment. It's been too long, and I don't know what the current situation in the material world is like. However, tens of thousands of years ago, The methods of refining soul tools, sacred tools, and divine tools used by the summoners in the material world came from the spirit realm. Those ordinary magic tools can only be considered to have a true soul after being refined by the soul refinement technique. They can erupt with great power. From the lowest level summoners to the highest level demigods and even the gods, they all use the soul refinement technique of our spirit realm to create powerful weapons. You're saying that the secret method of making soul tools is originally unique to our spirit realm? Elder Mu nodded solemnly. Yes, spirit shepherds are masters of controlling souls. The soul refinement technique is actually a way of using soul power in the material world. Speaking of this, Elder Mu's face revealed a look of reminiscence. I remember that a long, long time ago, there was a spirit shepherd who created a sect in the material world. I think it was called the Dream Spirit Sect or the Soul Dream Sect. Your Majesty, please forgive me. I'm old and my mind is not as bright as before. That sect spread part of the method of refining soul tools. Damn. He's found his roots. Xia Pingon was once again dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the methods of refining soul tools, sacred tools, and divine tools actually came from the spirit realm. He was a spirit shepherd, yet he didn't know about it. He was even worried about a soul tool even now. Damn it, as the monarch of the spirit realm and the master of the dream realm, he really had a hard time. Can I learn the soul refinement technique? Xia Pingon asked carefully, full of expectation. Your Majesty, how can you say that? The soul refinement technique was originally a secret method of our spirit realm. Of course Your Majesty can learn it, but I think Your Majesty's current soul power isn't dense enough. If you force yourself to learn it, I'm afraid you won't be able to grasp the essence of the soul refinement technique. Chapter 386. Great Fire Country, Capital Bay Area. When Xia Ning woke up, her pillow was still wet from her tears. In her dream last night, she saw her elder brother Xia Pingon again. In that dream, Xia Pingon told her that he was doing well and that he ate a lot, had a lot of fun, and that the mission was going very smoothly. He told her not to worry and that he would come to see her again when he had time. In her dream, Xia Ning held Xia Pingon's hand and asked him not to leave. However, Xia Pingon's figure gradually disappeared in her dream. Then, Xia Ning burst into tears in her dream. That dream was too real. It was as if Xia Pingon was really standing in front of her and saying those words to her. Xia Ning had also had dreams about Xia Pingon before. However, those dreams were a bit bizarre. She dreamed that Xia Pingon had married her sister-in-law, that Xia Pingon had suddenly returned, and even that she had set up a stall with Xia Pingon. The most terrifying dream was when she dreamed that Xia Pingon was fighting a large group of monsters. The last dream directly scared her awake. However, none of those dreams was as real as the one she had last night. That dream was like a letter from home, bringing the news of Xia Pingon. It was kind, warm, and tireless. Thinking of last night's dream, Xia Ning, who was still in her pajamas, walked out of her room absent-mindedly. Outside the room were the living room and kitchen, which were cozy and tidy. At this moment it was dawn. In the living room facing the south, the first ray of sunlight had already reached the living room. Through the floor-to-ceiling window of the living room, Zhang Tai could see the high blue bell tower of the National University of the Capital Circle and the Central Park of the National University of the Fire Country. The environment outside was very good. There were large lakes, grasslands, forests and flocks of flying pigeons. In the Capital Circle, Xia Ning was living in a senior apartment. Every inch of land here was expensive. Being close to the school, the security here was very good. Although some places in the Great Fire Country had not fully recovered, the order and production in the Capital Bay area had been restored. Additionally, the supplies were very sufficient. The rationing system had been gradually cancelled. In the kitchen next to the living room, a tall and slim woman with black hair in a white robe was boiling something. The strong aroma of coffee drifted in the kitchen. Hearing the footsteps behind her, the beautiful and gentle Enching turned around with a faint smile. Ning Ning, you woke up so early. It's the weekend. I will wake you up when I'm done with breakfast. Enching then noticed that Xia Ning looked a bit strange. She seemed to have been crying. Ah, what's wrong? After Xia Pingan joined the Heavens Patching Plan, those former friends of Xia Pingan and those summoners of the Committee of Order in Xianghe City had all taken care of Xia Ning as their younger sister. After the heavenly tribulation, the summoners in various places had been greatly adjusted. This high-end apartment belonged to Enching. At this moment, Enching had been transferred from Izhou province to an institution under the Committee of Order in the capital region. She could take care of Xia Ning, who was studying in the capital region National University. Xia Ning burst into tears. She rushed over and hugged Enching. Then, she buried her head in Enching's chest and burst into tears. Ah, what's wrong? Enching was at a loss when she saw Xia Ning crying so sadly as soon as she got up. Sister Qing, last night I dreamed of my brother, Xia Ning said while sobbing. You dreamed of Pingan? Enching patted Xia Ning's shoulder and comforted her. But you don't have to cry so sadly. That dream was too real. It was like I saw my brother in front of me. He said that he went on a mission. Everything is fine now, and I don't have to worry. He also told me a lot of things. Sister Qing, tell me, what mission did my brother go on? Why can't I even call him? There's no news. I don't want to study at the National University anymore, and I don't want to learn painting from Teacher Yu. Tell them that I'm willing to go back to Xianghe City. I don't want anything. Tell my brother to come back, okay? In the beginning, Enching and the others did not know about Xia Pingan and Yen Duo's mission. They only knew that it was a confidential mission. It was not until Enching came to the capital circle and came into contact with some things that Enching roughly understood what Xia Pingan and Yen Duo's mission was. Looking at the crying Xia Ning, Enching's eyes also turned red. She also resisted the urge to cry, and could only use lies to comfort Xia Ning. Look, you even dreamt that your brother is fine. Your brother will definitely be fine. Your brother is so powerful, and he's fine even after such a huge heavenly tribulation. Who can hurt him? Xia Ning raised his teary eyes and asked softly, Sister Qing, do you think this is a dream? I heard that only when the person is no longer around will they give a dream to their loved ones? It's not a dream. It's a dream. It's definitely not a dream. Don't listen to the nonsense of those frauds. Let me tell you, some powerful summoners can have a spiritual connection and resonance with their loved ones. You dreamed of your brother last night. It should be that your brother was also thinking about you, and he was absolutely fine, so he had a reaction with you. In order to comfort Xia Ning, Yasuharu had to make up a set of excuses. Really? Xia Ning wiped his tears and suddenly became energetic. Of course it's true. Enching stroked Xia Ning's hair and nodded. If you don't believe me, you can ask Sister Lingshan and Old Tu the next time you see them. Then why didn't my brother give me a call? The turmoil around the world hasn't completely subsided yet. Your brother should be carrying out a secret mission. This is the mission discipline. He definitely can't contact his family. Don't think too much about it. Hurry up and wash your face, then come out for breakfast. Seeing that Xia Ning's face had regained its radiance and went to the bathroom to wash up, Enching gently bit her lip and sighed in her heart. She didn't know how long this lie could be maintained. She hoped that time would dilute everything. Xia Ning was still in the bathroom. Enching picked up the phone and dialed a number. Hello. Mo Yinshao's calm and mellow voice came from the other side of the phone. Enching, what's the matter? It's Xia Ning's 21st birthday soon. You guys arranged to give him a birthday gift in his brother's name. It's not easy for me to do things in the capital circle. She dreamed of her brother again last night. I'm worried that if she finds out the truth too early, she might not be able to take it. Mo Yanshao and the others vaguely knew what Xia Pingan and Yen Duo were doing. On the other side of the phone, Mo Yanshao was silent for a while. Okay, I got it. I'll get someone to arrange it. Oh right, how's the situation in Izhou? I saw the briefing. The situation in Izhou is pretty good. It's alright. As long as the space invasion stops and there are no new monsters, the Committee of Order and the military are clearing out those monsters together. Things are going smoothly. Next month, Izhou will gradually cancel the rationing system from Xinchuan City and gradually restore order. The old man's position might be moved up a bit. The Devil's Eye is completely hidden now, but there are still some movements. You guys should be more careful. Don't worry, we'll deal with them sooner or later. I heard that the politicians and military in the capital circle are fighting fiercely. You should be more careful too. I'm not interested in politics. I only do what I should do. The two quickly ended the call. The current Mo Yanshao was no longer Director Mo. He had been transferred to the headquarters of the Izhou Committee of Order. His authority had increased, and he had become Minister Mo. After the heavenly tribulation, many things had changed, but some things would not change. Instead, they would become even more precious. After putting down the phone, Anqing began to focus on making breakfast. Breakfast was not ready yet. After washing up, Xia Ning came out in a new set of clothes and went to the kitchen to make breakfast with Anqing. At this moment, Xia Ning had completely transformed into a young lady. After eating the body-strengthening pill that Xia Pingan gave her, Xia Ning's hair was as black as silk. It shone. Her skin was delicate and rosy, and her eyes were bright and spirited. Her entire body seemed to have a kind of radiance that was exceptionally dazzling. Even in the National University, Xia Ning was the focus of the campus. Many people were chasing after her. When they were eating breakfast, Xia Ning's phone rang. After glancing at the name on the phone, Xia Ning hung up without hesitation. Anqing looked at the phone. It was a boy's name. She smiled and glanced at Xia Ning. Why didn't you pick up the phone? Xia Ning shook her head and pursed her lips. Those boys in school are so annoying. They're so lovey-dovey all day long. All of them think they're so great and only know how to talk big. My brother is not like that, Anqing smiled faintly. Xia Ning was already a grown-up. It was just that Xia Ning and Xia Pingan had been together for too long. When she met those boys who pursued her, she couldn't help but compare them with her brother. Among those boys in school, how many of them could compare with her brother? He was responsible, capable, courageous, wise, brave, responsible, and knew how to take care of others. If Xia Ning used Xia Pingan's standards to pick people, she wouldn't make a mistake. However, there weren't many boys who could meet Xia Ning's standards. Thinking of Xia Pingan, Anqing had some inexplicable feelings in her heart. However, at this moment, she could only sigh with slight melancholy. At this time, Anqing only thought of Xia Ning's dream last night as a dream of Xia Ning missing Xia Pingan. She didn't think too much about it. When they were eating breakfast, Xia Pingan was ready to step out of the fortress of the spiritual realm once again. At this moment, the sky of the spiritual realm had become transparent. Those stars had already hidden themselves. A thin layer of fog rose in the wilderness outside the fortress. In the fog, the polluted black qi in the greenery became more obvious, gloomy, cold, and depressed. Elder Mu sent Xia Pingan to the gate of the fortress once again. There are more zombies in the mountain ahead. As long as your Majesty's soul energy increases by 2 times, it will be easy for you to learn the soul refining skill. Chapter 387. The long sword in his hand pierced into the mouth of a zombie. With a flick of his wrist, the long sword slashed horizontally, causing the zombie's head to explode. The stinky dark green brain matter splattered everywhere. The zombie's entire body turned grayish-white in an instant. A faint black gas drifted out from the zombie's body and dissipated in the next second. Before the faint green shadow floated out of the zombie's body, Xia Pingon somersaulted in the air and hurriedly dodged it. A black wolf with red eyes scuttled close to the ground and pounced. It bared its sharp teeth and bit at Xia Pingon's throat. Black wolf. This was the third type of zombie Xia Pingon had seen here. His long sword quickly slashed out and directly chopped off the black wolf's head. He kicked away a green-skinned zombie that had approached him from behind, and the green-skinned zombie's head caved in. With a strange cry, Xia Pingon turned around and sent the green-skinned zombie's head flying with a slash of his sword. In front of him was a forest, and there were more than 10 zombies on the ground. The battle had lasted less than half a minute. Xia Pingon leaned against a big tree and panted, vigilantly looking around the forest. Only then did the shadows of the zombies on the ground gradually dissipate. The corpses turned into fine sand, and bits of golden light flew towards Xia Pingon as if attracted by a magnet. They fused into Xia Pingon's chest. That little bit of warmth directly shook Xia Pingon's spirit, and his exhaustion disappeared. It was as if he had taken tonics and stimulants, and he was full of energy again. Xia Pingon had been fighting in the wilderness for an entire day and night, and had cleared a large number of zombies in the wilderness. So far, Xia Pingon had encountered 3 types of zombies in the wilderness. One was the green-skinned little monster, another was the black wolf, and the last type was the treant. The treant liked to live in the forest. They were like moving dead wood or some kind of insect that could mimic branches. They were over 2 meters tall, and when they swung their arms, they were heavy and powerful, and could smash boulders. One thing these zombies had in common was that they were extremely aggressive and bloodthirsty. As soon as they saw Xia Pingon, they would immediately kill him. Therefore, Xia Pingon did not hold back. When he saw these zombies, he used the most straightforward method to free them. This kind of battle should have been very tiring, but after killing those zombies, the soul power of the zombies would be transferred to Xia Pingon's body bit by bit. That soul power was the best supplement. With the replenishment of that soul power, Xia Pingon became more and more courageous as he fought. He gradually approached the valley. This valley was called the Twilight Valley. Xia Pingon still had a map of the spiritual realm on him. At this moment, Xia Pingon's soul power was less than 30 slashes. It was much higher than when he had first entered this place. However, this amount of soul power was still not enough in Elder Mu's eyes. This valley was about 50 kilometers east of the Spirit Husbandry stronghold. After fighting here for half a day, Xia Pingon's soul power had doubled. He was already very close to the minimum soul power required to learn the soul refining technique. He just needed a few more zombies, and it would be enough. Xia Pingon discovered that there was a cave in the valley ahead. He had just seen 2 green-skinned zombies run out of the cave. Seeing that the cave was not far away, Xia Pingon mustered up his courage and crept towards the cave. There were many pale skeletons scattered at the entrance of the cave. Some of the skeletons seemed to belong to humans, but there were also all kinds of strange animals. When Xia Pingon stepped on them, the skeletons cracked and shattered. There was a thin layer of fog inside the cave, making it look a little dark. However, there were all kinds of colorful stalactites in the cave that gave off a faint glow. This made the cave look very strange. When Xia Pingon entered the cave, 2 green-skinned zombies roared and rushed towards him. The sword light of Flying Edge flickered twice, and the heads of the 2 zombies flew up. Their souls were freed, and the 2 golden lights merged into Xia Pingon's chest. Xia Pingon crept into the cave and killed more than 10 green-skinned zombies. When he neared the interior of the cave, the air in the cave suddenly became polluted, and an indescribable stench filled the cave. Walala! Walala! Xia Pingon heard the sound of iron chains rattling inside the cave. Out of curiosity, he carefully walked towards the direction of the sound of iron chains. After turning around a few stalactites and a twisted cave entrance, the scene in front of him suddenly opened up. He had already arrived at the interior of the cave. However, the scene that Xia Pingan saw shocked him greatly. He saw 4 black chains in the interior of the cave. One end was tied to a huge stalactite in the cave, and the other end was tied to a person. When Xia Pingan saw that person, he was squatting on the ground with disheveled hair, and his shoulders were constantly shaking. It was unknown what he was doing. There were also more than 10 green-skinned zombies kneeling in a circle around the person. It was unknown what they were doing. Xia Pingan just appeared here without making any sound. The person squatting on the ground with disheveled hair noticed his arrival. He suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of Xia Pingan. It was a human face. The face was shrouded in black gas and his eyes were blood-red. The person was chewing on half of a rotten zombie corpse, revealing a mouth full of fangs. It was extremely ferocious and terrifying. The person seemed to be wearing the armor of a spirit herder. The armor was somewhat tattered and rusted, and it was unknown how many years it had been there. "Who is it?" The person roared and stood up abruptly. The chains on his body rattled. The surrounding green-skinned zombies also turned their heads at once. They all held their weapons and rushed toward Xia Pingan while yelling, F***CK. Xia Pingan did not retreat. He directly rushed towards the green-skinned zombies. The sword light continued to dance, and one by one, the heads of the green-skinned zombies flew and fell in front of Xia Pingan. The bodies of the green-skinned zombies turned into fine sand. Green light constantly appeared, and one by one, their souls were freed. Little bits of golden light constantly gathered towards Xia Pingan. Suddenly, there was a gust of wind beside him. Xia Pingan reached out and blocked with his longsword. Dang! A loud sound rang out. Xia Pingan's arm and chest felt stuffy. The flying-edge sword in his hand almost fell out of his hand. His whole body was almost knocked upside down. He quickly dodged, and quickly retreated a few meters. The person with 4 chains on his body had already rushed in front of Xia Pingan. He was like a madman, holding a rusty broadsword in his hand. With just one slash, he sent Xia Pingan flying. That person's face was incomparably malevolent, and there were even bits of black scales on his face. He wanted to chase after Xia Pingan, but the iron chains on his hands and feet tugged, causing that person's movements to become sluggish, and he was unable to charge over. Xia Pingan saw the person's face contorted in pain. The broadsword in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. Then, he held his head with both hands and roared in the cave. A few more green-skinned zombies rushed over, but they were killed by Xia Pingan in the blink of an eye. The green-skinned zombies in the cave were wiped out by Xia Pingan in the blink of an eye. The man who was chained rushed over again with a broadsword. Xia Pingan exchanged 2 moves with the person. His arm was numb from the shock, and he quickly retreated. In all fairness, if the person was not chained up, Xia Pingan would not be his opponent. However, the person was chained up, and on the other hand, he was in great pain. Often, after exchanging 2 moves with Xia Pingan, he would hold his head and roll on the ground. This gave Xia Pingan a chance to breathe. "Hurry up, kill me." After another exchange, the person rolled on the ground. Then, he suddenly raised his head and roared at Xia Pingan with a face contorted in pain. After roaring, Xia Pingan saw the person pick up the broadsword in his left hand and slash at his own neck. However, his right hand caught the broadsword. Then, the person's face was covered with black scales again. The scales extended from his face to his neck. Then, the person's eyes turned blood-red, and his face became ferocious again. He rushed toward Xia Pingan. The iron chain worked again. The person roared and began to chop at the heavy iron chain on his body with his broadsword. Sparks flew in all directions. In the blink of an eye, one of the iron rings was broken. Seeing this, Xia Pingan hurriedly rushed up and gritted his teeth to fight the person again. After a few moves, with a clang, Xia Pinggan's flying on was directly sent flying by the person's broadsword. It turned into a streamer and stabbed into the stone wall 30 meters away. Xia Pinggan's face changed. Just when he was about to retreat, the person's face contorted in pain again. The broadsword in his hand fell to the ground, and he held his head with both hands. Xia Pinggan gritted his teeth and rushed to the side of that person. He half knelt on the ground and picked up that person's saber. With a single slash, he chopped off one of that person's legs. That person uttered a strange cry and half knelt on the ground at once. His hands reached toward Xia Pinggan's eyes and neck. One hand grabbed Xia Pinggan's eyes and the other hand grabbed Xia Pinggan's throat. Xia Pinggan took 2 steps back again to avoid the person's attack. At the same time, he stretched out his arm. With the broadsword in his hand, the attack range was enough. The broadsword turned into a cold light and swept across the person's neck. That person's neck flew up and rolled to the ground. Xia Pinggan held the broadsword and panted violently. A black gas drilled out of the person's body and let out an ear-piercing scream. Then, it dissipated. Then, spots of white light began to appear on that person's body. Within the white light, a handsome man appeared. The man looked at Xia Pinggan and felt relieved. He said lightly, "Thank you, I'm finally free." Then, the white light also dissipated. In the next second, a golden flame flew out from where the white light disappeared and directly entered Xia Pinggan's chest. Xia Pinggan's soul power began to boil. At this moment, Xia Pinggan felt like he was about to explode from the soul power. Xia Pinggan's body was emitting a dazzling golden light. He only felt the soul power in his body rising rapidly like a flood. After about 5 or 6 minutes, that boiling soul power finally stopped, and the soul power in Xia Pinggan's body had already increased explosively by several times, reaching the standard of around 120 /PS. There are 4 new league leaders. Tiger remembers. Thank you, Demi. Thank you, everyone, for your support. Tiger now owes 4 chapters of League Leaders. I'll slowly make up for it later. Chapter 388. At the entrance of the stronghold, Elder Mu was surprised to see Xia Pinggan's soul power surge after his return. He asked for the reason, and Xia Pinggan told him about his encounter in the cave. Your Majesty said that you saw a spirit herder chained up in the cave, and your soul power surged after you freed him? Yes. Xia Pinggan nodded. If it wasn't for that person being chained up and struggling, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been his match. Elder Mu, do you know who that person is? Elder Mu sighed. That should be a spirit herder in the stronghold. After being infected by demonic energy, he banished himself to the cave and locked himself up to resist the demonic energy. Your Majesty, if you encounter such a spirit herder in the future, you must be careful. This person can resist the demonic energy's corruption and still retain part of his mind. However, some spirit herders can't resist the demonic energy's corruption and will completely degenerate. They are extremely dangerous. Are there many spirit herders contaminated by demonic energy? There must be some left after the battle, but there shouldn't be too many. That person's soul power is so strong. What rank was he when he was in the stronghold? He should be an intermediate spirit herder. Although Your Majesty's soul power is very strong now, the number of astral souls that Your Majesty is in charge of isn't many, so you can't become an intermediate spirit herder yet. Your Majesty can't learn some of the spells and secret techniques of intermediate spirit herders for the time being. It doesn't matter. I'll learn the soul refining secret technique first. It's very useful to me. After I master the soul refining secret technique, I'll slowly find an opportunity to kill the horseshoe beetle and become an intermediate spirit herder. Yes, Your Majesty, please follow me. I'll take Your Majesty to learn the soul refining secret technique. After Elder Mu finished speaking, he floated towards the stronghold. Xia Pinggan followed him all the way, and the gate of the stronghold behind the two of them quietly closed. Elder Mu led Xia Pingan all the way to a tall building called the Holy Soul Hall. The Holy Soul Hall was empty, but it was still grand and solemn, with a solemn and sacred aura. In the main hall of the Holy Soul Hall, Xia Pingan saw a tall emerald stone tablet. There was a groove on the tablet that one could put their hand in, and the words Soul Refining Secret Technique were written in gold. Seeing the emerald stone tablet, Xia Pingan felt his heartbeat quicken. The Soul Refining Secret Technique included the Soul Splitting Technique, which was an authentic secret technique to transform a magic tool into a soul tool. He didn't know what kind of techniques outside who knew the technique of the soul-splitting soul or whether they were complete. But the secret technique in the emerald stones was definitely the technique. To him, didn't know what kind of techniques the techniques of the soul. Your Majesty, just put your hand on it and you'll be able to grasp this secret technique. Xia Pingan nodded, but he couldn't help but ask, why is the soul refining secret technique not in the Spirit Husbandry Palace, but in the Holy Soul Hall? The secret techniques in the Spirit Husbandry Palace can be learned as long as the Spirit Husbandry's level is high enough. However, not everyone can learn the secret techniques in the Holy Soul Hall, even in the spiritual realm. There are many soul-refining secret techniques in the Holy Soul Hall. Your Majesty, as long as the Spirit Husbandry's level is high enough, you can learn them. I see. Xia Pingan nodded as he moved 2 steps forward and put his palm into the groove of the emerald steel. Only after a few seconds, a wisp of energy surged out of the emerald steel and entered Xia Pingan's body and consciousness. The knowledge and information of the soul-refining secret technique flowed into Xia Pingan's spiritual body and consciousness like a trickle. Xia Pingan closed his eyes as his eyelashes slightly quivered. In only a few minutes, the soul-refining secret technique had integrated with Xia Pingan's spiritual body and consciousness. Like the instinct that Xia Pingan had practiced for so many years, Xia Pingan had mastered it all at once. After a few minutes, Xia Pingan opened his eyes, which sparkled with spiritual light. He moved 1 step back and bowed towards the emerald steel solemnly. I've been here for 2 days. I'm going back to the material world. There are still many things waiting for me to do. When I have time, I'll come back, Xia Pingan said to Elder Mu. Then I'll see you off, Your Majesty. Elder Mu bowed towards Xia Pingan. Xia Pingan glanced at the upper floor of the Sacred Soul Palace. He didn't go up. Instead, he just nodded and turned around to leave the Sacred Soul Palace. Less than 10 minutes later, Xia Pingan, who had entered Earth's spirit world, stepped out of the huge golden arched door and appeared in the spirit world of the god-slaying insect world. In front of him, there was a golden arched door. If he was not mistaken, the arched door led to the spirit realm of the myriad god planet. In order to avoid trouble, Xia Pingan didn't enter the golden arched door. Instead, he ran towards the arched door that led to his spiritual realm shrine. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed over 1,000 meters and entered his spiritual realm shrine, returning to the material world. In the secret chamber, with the return of Xia Pingan's spirit body, the muscles and bones of Xia Pingan's body, which was sitting cross-legged, began to crackle for more than 10 minutes. After the crackling stopped, Xia Pingan's body became translucent like glass and began to emit a faint golden light. His muscles, bones, internal organs, and skin all seemed to have become translucent. At this moment, if someone stood in front of Xia Pingan, they would be able to see the blood flowing in the blood vessels under Xia Pingan's skin, as well as the complete condition of his internal organs. The translucent state of Xia Pingan's body lasted for more than 10 minutes. Then, the light gradually faded, and Xia Pingan's body gradually returned to normal. When everything returned to normal, Xia Pingan opened his eyes again. He stood up and stretched his arms and legs. F***ck. With this movement, Xia Pingan realized that his current body was like a completely different one. Not to mention anything else, just the strength of this body had increased by more than 10 times. Xia Pingan's body wasn't weak to begin with. After all, he was a 5-sun realm summoner. However, at this moment, the strength of this body was completely different from before. If his body's strength was comparable to that of a child's in the past, then the strength of this body was comparable to that of an adult Hercules. Apart from strength, all other aspects of his body had been raised to an unbelievable level. Take his hearing for example. Xia Pingan only focused on his hearing, and he could hear everything within 100 meters of the secret room. Even the sound of water dripping from the roof of a house 100 meters away could be heard clearly. All the sounds formed a huge sound field. Xia Pingan closed his eyes and created a clear sound field image in his mind. For the first time, Xia Pingan realized that when one's hearing and consciousness reached a certain level, they could use their hearing to construct the outline and understanding of the world in their mind. All these changes were due to the explosive increase in Xia Pingan's soul power. If it was calculated based on Xia Pingan's initial soul power, the soul power in Xia Pingan's body had increased by more than 20 times compared to before. Xia Pingan punched out, and the air in the secret room was torn apart by his fist. It was as if a cannonball had been fired from a cannon. Xia Pingan only used 30% of his strength when he stomped on the hard rock floor of the secret chamber. With a boom, a large pit more than a foot deep was smashed open by Xia Pingan. Xia Pingan felt that some powerful instincts in his body seemed to have been awakened. His chi and blood surged like a dragon. This feeling was too wonderful and indescribable. Xia Pingan took a deep breath and then spat out that breath like an arrow. Puff! The air arrow that he spat out broke a hole in the wall of the secret room 5 meters away. There were a few cracks, as if it had been hit by a bullet. At this moment, Xia Pingan even felt that he could use this body to tear the mantis blade bug apart without using any spells. Soul power, not bad, not bad. Ha 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 ha. Xia Pingan laughed heartily. The pressure that he had felt since entering the god-slaying bug world had disappeared without a trace after coming out of seclusion. Strength was the best way to be immune to all worries and pressure. Xia Pingan took out the 7-star sword from his spatial equipment. The 7-star sword was originally a 2-handed sword and was not light. However, at this moment, the 7-star sword in Xia Pingan's hand was as light as straw. It was as light as a feather and almost weightless. In the next second, Xia Pingan used the blade of the sword to cut his finger and dripped a drop of blood on the blade of the 7-star sword. Then, a surge of soul power gushed out and poured into the drop of blood. Xia Pingan had poured almost an entire 10 slashes of soul power into that drop of blood of his. This amount of soul power was almost twice the amount of soul power that he had in his entire body in the past. After that drop of blood absorbed Xia Pingan's divine power, it began to glow. The blood turned into a golden human figure. The human figure's face was vaguely similar to Xia Pingan's. Then, the human figure picked up the 7-star sword and swallowed it. The 7-star sword floated in the void. The sword body flashed with a brilliant brilliance and gradually merged with the human figure that had been infused with divine power. The golden human figure that was glowing was slowly absorbed by the 7-star sword. Xia Pingan made a few secret hand seals towards the 7-star sword that was emitting light. The shape of the sword body slowly disappeared and turned into a ball of flashing golden liquid. Finally, the flashing golden liquid turned into a human figure and walked towards Xia Pingan. After bowing 3 times to Xia Pingan, it turned into a ray of light and merged with Xia Pingan's body again. Just like fusing with the realm pearl, it directly wrapped Xia Pingan in a cocoon of light. This cocoon of light disappeared after 2 full days. After the cocoon of light disappeared, Xia Pingan had a strange black giant sword in his hand. It flashed with a chilling light. This giant sword was somewhat similar to the seven-star sword. It was mighty, domineering, and covered with strange golden patterns. It was inexplicably similar to the steel whip of the Black Cobra that Xia Pingan had used before. The closer the sword body was to the hilt and the head, the thicker it was. After the sword body was broken, it became thinner and tighter like a snake's body. Xia Pingan stroked this long sword with a smile on his face. Then, he shook it and the sword body suddenly split into 360 sharp sword blades. The middle of the sword body was connected by a snake-like metal. All of a sudden, all the sword blades combined into a whip that looked like a black cobra, a sword whip. Xia Pingan only made a light whip and a terrifying storm of sword blades swept through the entire secret room. The entire secret room was filled with the terrifying whooshing sound that could shatter humans and demons. There seemed to be countless stars flying in the secret room. Xia Pingan flicked a gold coin into the storm of sword blades. In the blink of an eye, the sword blade storm cut the gold coin into countless pieces and turned it into golden powder. It then turned into a whirlwind of flashing golden light that danced in the secret room. Xia Pingan withdrew the whirlwind and the whirlwind disappeared. The flying golden powder slowly fell to the ground and drew a complete circle on the floor of the secret room. All the sword blades on the sword whip in Xia Pingan's hand closed with a click. There was not the slightest gap. The whip had turned into a giant sword again. From now on, as my sole item, you don't have to be called the seven-star sword. Just call it the seven-star sword whip. The giant sword in his hand flashed with a black brilliance, which seemed to be a response to Xia Pingan's words. Xia Pingan put away the seven-star sword whip and proudly walked out of the secret room with his head held high and his chest puffed out. Sage Master Realm Pearl, I'm coming. Chapter 389. A few days later, in the underground crack outside the Immortal City. Looking from above, this underground crack looked like a huge canyon. On both sides of the canyon were steep cliffs and crisscrossed rock. Some pale green fluorite stalagmites were hiding among the rocks and embellishing this pitch-dark gorge. Tall underground ferns were growing in the gorge. Occasionally, hot air with sulfuric smell would spurt out of the crevices and hot springs of the gorge. On one side of the gorge, a dark red magma river was slowly flowing. There were some cracks in the canyon that were tens of meters or even hundreds of meters wide. It was dark and endless, leading to an even deeper underground. One by one, the mantis blade bugs crawled out from the cracks in the canyon and surged toward the surface. This was the most lively Black Wind Canyon outside the Immortal City. Black Wind Canyon was a well-known battlefield outside the Immortal City. The huge canyon was tens of thousands of kilometers long, winding and continuous. There were various maze-like caves and complicated terrains in the canyon. This became one of the main battlegrounds of the summoners and the zergs in the Immortal City. Most of the mantis blade insects that appeared here were 6 Sun Realm mantis blade insects. Occasionally, there would be 7 Sun Realm or Nether Passage Realm insects that appeared. In the darkness, flashes of spells and flames could be seen in the distant sky or on the ground from time to time. They flickered like artillery fire on the battlefield. There were summoners fighting with the zergs. Over the years, countless summoners had died here. Along the way from the Immortal City to here, the tombstones of the fallen summoners could be seen everywhere. But even so, it couldn't stop the footsteps of the summoners who were still alive. Of course, there were even more zergs that were killed here. If one wanted to join the 10,000 God sect, become a disciple of the 10,000 God sect, and obtain the extremely rare Saint Master Realm Pearl, they had to prove it with battle results and strength. The mantis blade insects here, in addition to insect crystals, also had various rare realm pearls. Therefore, some summoners who came here weren't even disciples of the 10,000 God sect. They just treated the Immortal City as their base and came here to hunt zergs to obtain realm pearls. The Immortal City welcomed such summoners very much. Xia Pingan had been here for an entire day. When he left the Immortal City the day before yesterday, he flew to Black Wind Canyon with many summoners. After arriving here, other than a few fixed groups and acquaintances, everyone was fighting for themselves. They were all strangers, and they were all on guard against each other. If they were forced to stay together, no one would feel at ease, so they might as well search for their own opportunities. Xia Pingan was sitting on a stalagmite more than 20 meters above the ground in the valley. He looked somewhat aloof. He used an illusion to conceal his figure. Ordinary people could only see the stalagmite high above the ground and not him. Below the stalagmite was a large patch of grayish-white mushrooms. Near the mushrooms there were a few cracks that led underground. Even in the cracks of the nearby rocks, there were body parts of the mantis blade insects that had been killed. However, those body parts looked like they had been there for a long time. Xia Pingan didn't look for the mantis blade insects. He just waited here for the mantis blade insects to come to him, just like fishing. The environment here indicated that there would be mantis blade insects around. It was considered a nest, so he didn't have to bother looking everywhere. He just had to familiarize himself with the surrounding terrain and wait. This was Xia Pingan's tactic. In this unfamiliar Black Wind Canyon, it was actually more dangerous to wander around randomly. It was actually wiser to find a familiar place to be his home ground. The illusion of fire beacon trick could only make it difficult for other summoners to discover him, but it was useless against the mantis blade insects. Xia Pingan had already experienced it. As long as a mantis blade insect appeared nearby, it would definitely discover him. After sitting here for a day, Xia Pingan rested and honed his energy. His entire person's condition was already at its peak. There was always a reward for waiting. Just as a blinding ball of fire exploded in the sky hundreds of miles away, Xia Pingan's ears heard a slight creaking sound coming from the underground crevice more than 200 meters away from him. Just by listening to that sound, Xia Pingan's mind imagined a mantis blade insect climbing up from the underground crevice step by step. The mantis blade insect's 3 pairs of legs were inserted into the crevice of the rock wall like knives. It was climbing up rapidly with an agility that didn't match its size. The hard and rugged rock wall of the underground crevice was as soft as tofu under the mantis blade insect's legs. With a light stab, the mantis blade insect's legs could silently sink half a foot into the rock wall. There were also some densely packed holes in the rock wall. Those were the footprints left behind by other mantis blade insects. As long as the mantis blade insect behind stepped on these holes, it would be easy for it to climb up. Seeing that the mantis blade insect was getting closer and closer to the hole, Xia Pingan finally moved. With a leap, he jumped off the stalagmite like a bird and landed directly near the crevice that the mantis blade insect had crawled out from. The mantis blade insect that had just crawled out of the underground crevice saw Xia Pingan the moment it crawled out of the ground. The mantis blade insect didn't hesitate. It opened its ferocious mouth full of sharp teeth and stabbed its 2 sword-like forelimbs toward Xia Pingan's chest like a charging tank. This was the second mantis blade insect that Xia Pingan had encountered. Compared to the first mantis blade insect, it wasn't inferior at all. Its movements seemed to be even faster. However, Xia Pingan didn't know if it was because his eyesight had improved or because his soul power had increased too much, but when he looked at the mantis blade insect that was charging toward him again, he felt that the mantis blade insect's movements were clumsy and slow. He didn't feel that oppressive feeling anymore. Xia Pingan's movements were much faster than this mantis blade insect's. Xia Pingan's eyes flashed. He didn't cast any spells. The moment the mantis blade insect charged over, he flipped over and landed on the mantis blade insect's back at a speed faster than the mantis blade insect. Then, Xia Pingan's soul weapon appeared in his hand, the 7-star sword whip. The sword whip was still in the shape of a giant sword. It was powerful and sharp, flashing with a layer of dim light. The sword body hummed without moving, making a soft buzzing sound as if it was thirsting for blood and battle. With the long sword in hand, Xia Pingan didn't even think about it. He stabbed the long sword viciously toward the bottom of the mantis blade insect's head. Pucci, the mantis blade insect's carapace, which was as hard as alloy armor, seemed to have turned into a thick paper shell at this moment. It was pierced through by Xia Pingan's giant sword almost without any resistance. The giant sword sank about a meter deep into the mantis blade insect's neck, leaving only the thick sword hilt stuck to the mantis blade insect's neck. The tip of the sword, which was as sharp as a snake's tail, directly pierced through the mantis blade insect's neck, dripping with blood. The mantis blade insect was stunned. Xia Pingan was stunned as well. He didn't expect his sole weapon to be so terrifying. It only took one sword strike to pierce through the mantis blade insect's hardest carapace. Not only that, when the giant sword pierced through the mantis blade insect's body, Xia Pingan felt his hands, which were holding the long sword, heat up. Waves of comfortable warmth flowed from the sword hilt into his body, madly replenishing his qi and blood. This 7-star sword whip soul weapon could actually absorb the mantis blade insect's life force? Xia Pingan was delighted. That mantis blade insect had already gone crazy. It let out a shrill cry and waved its 2 terrifying front limbs, one on the left and one on the right, towards Xia Pingan's body. Xia Pingan, who had succeeded in one strike, was invigorated. The fear he had for the mantis blade insect instantly vanished. Seeing the mantis blade insect's 2 sharp front limbs stabbing towards him, he pulled out his long sword. The long sword struck the mantis blade insect's neck, instantly creating a huge wound that was more than 3 feet long. The mantis blade insect's green blood spurted out more than 5 meters high. Xia Pingan jumped up from the mantis blade insect's back with his sword. He aimed at the joint of one of the mantis blade insect's front limbs and slashed at it. Another gush of fresh blood spurted out from the mantis blade insect's body. That mantis blade insect's front limb was directly chopped off by Xia Pingan's sword, and it flew more than 10 meters away. The attack from the mantis blade insect's other front limb also missed. Get down! Xia Pingan's leaping figure landed fiercely. One of his legs, which was wearing a combat boot, directly stepped on the mantis blade insect's head. Gotcha! That mantis blade insect's 6 legs were directly embedded into the rocks on its back under the huge force. The mantis blade insect's huge body and head were also directly stomped onto the ground by Xia Pingan's foot. Soil and rocks flew everywhere. Before that mantis blade insect could get up again, the huge sword in Xia Pingan's hand once again stabbed into the wound on the mantis blade insect's neck. Xia Pingan pressed on the hilt of the sword as his body flew down from the mantis blade insect's back. The huge sword was like a guillotine as it ruthlessly cut through the other side of the mantis blade insect's neck. Boom! The rocks under the mantis blade insect's head were instantly smashed into pieces. The huge sword blade transformed from the sword whip directly circled around the mantis blade insect's neck. The mantis blade insect's ferocious head immediately rolled off. The mantis blade insect whose head had fallen off did not die instantly. Or rather, it did not realize that it had already died. Its ferocious mouth was still open, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth. It bit toward Xia Pingan's feet. As for the mantis blade insect's body, it was lying on the ground in an instant. Its 6 legs were twitching and swinging, and its only remaining forelimb was waving unconsciously. Where the mantis blade insect's head and neck had been cut off, green blood spurted out violently like water from a pipe, splattering all over the ground. Xia Pingan lifted his leg and stepped on the mantis blade insect's head into the rocks under his feet. The mantis blade insect's huge body twitched twice before it stopped moving. Faced with such an outcome, Xia Pingan was stunned for a moment. It was as if he could not believe that he had relied only on the strength of his physical body, completely like a martial artist, To kill a mantis blade insect that had chased him until he pissed his pants a few days ago, the power of the sole weapon in his hands was completely beyond his imagination. Chapter 390. After killing the mantis blade bug, Xia Pingon waved his hand and sent the mantis blade bug into the spatial warehouse. The spatial warehouse in the secret mandala had not received any new bugs for a long time. Once the mantis blade bug was sent in, a group of blacksmiths, farmer, and pharmacist in the secret mandala rushed over and started to get busy. They started to cut the mantis blade bug into pieces. The blacksmiths were busy stripping the mantis blade bug's carapace and limbs. The pharmacist was busy collecting the mantis blade bug's flesh and organs. In just a short while, Xia Pingon was still immersed in the joy of killing the mantis blade bug with zero divine power consumption. The blacksmiths and pharmacist in the secret mandala found a realm pearl and a black bug crystal in the mantis blade bug's body. That bug crystal looked similar to the bug crystal that Xia Pingon had collected the first time. However, that realm pearl almost made Xia Pingon grin. It was a green realm pearl that kept changing colors like a chameleon. Sometimes it even became completely transparent. If one did not look closely, it would be hard to notice. In that realm pearl, there were 4 Xiaozhuan characters, 1 leaf vision. It was indeed a new and rare realm pearl. Fusing with this new realm pearl was too easy. It should not take more than a few minutes. Xia Pingon was just about to find a place nearby to quickly fuse with this realm pearl. Suddenly, his ears twitched. There was movement in the underground crevice beside him. Another mantis blade bug was crawling up from below. With the experience of the first battle, the second battle was even easier. Xia Pingon was more experienced in dealing with it. The second mantis blade bug crawled up from the underground crevice. When it saw Xia Pingon, it immediately rushed over. Xia Pingon dodged and once again rushed onto the mantis blade bug's back. The huge sword in his hand was ruthlessly stabbed into the mantis blade bug's neck. With one attack, he broke through the mantis blade bug's defense and severely injured it. As for the attack on its neck, the second mantis blade bug's reaction was exactly the same as the first one. Without even thinking, it swept its 2 terrifying front limbs towards its back. However, this time, with the experience of dealing with the first mantis blade bug, it was easier for Xia Pingon to deal with this one. Moreover, he was already prepared. Just as the mantis blade bug's forelimbs swept over, Xia Pingon waved his hand and summoned a simple net that instantly entangled the mantis blade bug's 2 forelimbs. The mantis blade bug's movements suddenly slowed down and stopped for a moment. Of course, the dragnet technique could not trap the mantis blade bug, but it only needed to trap it for a moment. The moment the mantis blade bug's 2 forelimbs were trapped, the huge sword in Xia Pingon's hand turned into a guillotine once again. He pressed down on the hilt of the sword with both hands and used all his strength to slash at the mantis blade bug's neck. With a crack, the mantis blade bug's neck was almost cut in half by Xia Pingon's attack. The mantis blade bug's green blood suddenly spurted out from its neck in a fan shape and scattered like rain. The entire mantis blade bug let out a shrill cry. At this moment, the mantis blade bug's forelimbs tore through the dragnet technique's obstruction and continued to stab towards Xia Pingon. However, Xia Pingon had already flipped over and leaped away, easily dodging the mantis blade bug's attack. At this moment, only half of the mantis blade bug's head was stuck to its neck. Its huge body staggered a few steps on the ground, swaying from side to side as if it was drunk. Its entire body was no longer as agile as before. The mantis blade bug let out a shrill cry. It probably did not expect the human summoner in front of it to be so terrifying. The sole tool in his hand was so strong that it could severely injure it with just the weapon in his hand without the help of powerful spells. Seeing Xia Pingon's figure dodge, the mantis blade bug's 2 forelimbs stabbed into the ground. Instantly, black ice spread out from the ground like water ripples towards Xia Pingon, who had just landed on the ground. Xia Pingan leaped up. A stalactite behind him that was taller than a person was covered by the black ice. In the blink of an eye, it shattered with a crack and fell to the ground. The mantis blade bug's move was too ferocious. It was almost on par with Xuanwu's breath. After the attack, a cloud of black gas surged out from the mantis blade bug's body, enveloping its staggered body and drooping neck. It retreated, trying to retreat back into the crevices in the ground. The mantis blade bug actually knew how to escape when it felt the aura of death? This raised Xia Pingan's judgment of the mantis blade bug's intelligence. However, Xia Pingan was not going to let this mantis blade bug go. A complete mantis blade bug was so fast that it was not even close to Xia Pingan's eyes. Moreover, this mantis blade bug was already severely injured. Not only did it slow down, but its footsteps were also a little messy. Xia Pingan dashed to the side of the mantis blade bug in a flash. The huge sword in his hand slashed down once again. The huge sword easily tore through the layer of black gas on the mantis blade bug's neck and the carapace underneath it. In an instant, the muscles and bones on the mantis blade bug's drooping neck were severed. The mantis blade bug's head fell to the ground once again. After struggling for a while, it stopped moving. This was the second mantis blade bug that Xia Pingan had killed. With a wave of his hand, Xia Pingan stored the corpse of this mantis blade bug into the spatial warehouse. This mantis blade bug did not have a realm pearl in its body. It only had a black bug crystal. After killing these two mantis blade bugs, the surrounding valley suddenly quieted down. Xia Pingan waited for a while. No more mantis blade bugs appeared from the crevices in the ground. He summoned Boy of Fortune and looked around. There were no other summoners hiding in the surroundings. With a move of his hand, Xia Pingan put away the huge sword. Then, his entire body rose into the air. He used an illusion to conceal his body and flew towards the sky above the canyon. In the mountain walls on both sides of the canyon, there were all kinds of crevices and caves of various sizes. Some of these crevices and caves were natural, while others were left behind by mantis blade bugs and former summoners. In a short while, Xia Pingan found a deep cave in the mountain walls on both sides of the canyon. He entered it in a flash. The cave had many twists and turns. It was like a maze inside. Such a cave was too narrow. The mantis blade bug could not enter. Only a person could enter. After going 1,000 meters into the cave, Xia Pingan summoned a Xuanwu the size of a table to guard the cave entrance. He entered the cave and found a dry place to sit cross-legged. He took out the one-leaf vision realm pearl and prepared to fuse with it. After a summoner obtained a realm pearl from a battle in the wild, it was impossible to bring every realm pearl back to the city to fuse with it. Although the latter was safer, there were always some daring summoners who would find a place in the wild to fuse with realm pearls when the conditions were right. The biggest risk of fusing realm pearls in the wild, apart from the Zerg, was other summoners with ulterior motives. For the former, they could use the terrain to restrict them. For example, the mantis blade bug could not enter this cave. If it insisted on entering, it would cause a huge commotion. It would also take a long time to dig out the cave entrance and the mountain walls along the way. This would give the summoner, who was fusing with realm pearls in the cave, time to react. The latter, on the other hand, could use powerful summoned creatures to deter them. If ordinary summoners saw that these places were guarded by other summoners' summoned creatures, they would be able to guess that the summoner was resting in seclusion or fusing with a realm pearl. In order to avoid misunderstandings, they would avoid them and would not rashly enter again. If they saw these summoned creatures guarding these places and still wanted to force their way in, they would be like robbers with evil intentions. They would have completely shed all pretense of cordiality. It would be a conflict of life and death. The time it took to fuse with a realm pearl could be as short as a few minutes or as long as a few hours or even a few days. There was definitely a risk in fusing in the wild. It depended on whether one was willing to enjoy this convenience. Xia Pingan was willing to do so. This was because he knew that this one-leaf vision realm pearl would not take long. Xia Pingan did not waste any time. Once he sat down, he pricked his finger with a silver needle and dripped his blood onto the realm pearl. In a short while, Xia Pingan was wrapped in an illusory cocoon of light. Xia Pingan opened his eyes and realized that he was wearing patched clothes. He was sitting cross-legged on a straw mat in a simple straw hut. He was holding a bamboo slip in his hand. The bamboo slip was Huinanzi. There was a sentence on the bamboo slip: "The mantis waits for the cicada to blind itself. The leaf can become invisible." There were no punctuation marks on the bamboo slips of this era. Xia Pingan was delighted when he saw that sentence. This scholar from Chu, who left behind the one-leaf vision realm pearl, was very knowledgeable and empirical. Later generations laughed at him for being silly, but this kind of empirical spirit was rare. Chapter 391. For those summoners who didn't know the Chinese characters on the bamboo slips, even if the answer was right in front of them, they wouldn't know what was written on it. But for Xia Pingan, it was too easy to fuse with this realm pearl. Xia Pingan put down the bamboo slips and walked out of the thatched hut happily. The sun was shining brightly outside the hut. It was autumn. Outside the thatched hut was a simple courtyard surrounded by a fence. The surrounding environment was pretty good. It was a small village with smoke rising in spirals. Except for the fact that the house was poor and simple, it was pretty good. In the distance, he could see fields and a small hill. Xia Pingan left the village and ran directly to the small hill, where he heard the faint chirping of cicadas. In autumn, many leaves had begun to fall from the trees. But the weather hadn't completely turned cold yet, so he could still hear the chirping of cicadas. Listening to the chirping, Xia Pingan searched for a while and found a cicada under a coptis tree full of fallen leaves. He also saw a mantis hiding behind the leaves, quietly approaching the cicada. Xia Pingan waited under the tree. Sure enough, the cicada didn't find the mantis hiding behind the leaves. The mantis shot out like lightning and caught the cicada at once. Xia Pingan found a long branch nearby. He picked it up and knocked on the branch where the mantis was stalking the cicada just now. A large pile of leaves fell from the tree and mixed with the other leaves. It wasn't easy to distinguish them. Of course, Xia Pingan could still distinguish them. But fusing with this kind of realm pearl was like acting. He had to follow the script to the end. Xia Pingan threw the branch onto the ground and took off his clothes. He picked up all the leaves on the ground and wrapped them in his clothes. He wrapped them in a big bag like he was carrying luggage. Finally, he carried the big bag of leaves and went home. When he got home, the scholar's wife was cooking in the kitchen. The food at home was coarse and light. But his wife was virtuous and took care of the housework. Xia Pingan picked up one of the leaves from his clothes and covered his eyes with it. He then came out of the kitchen. "Wife, can you see me?" The woman who was cooking in the kitchen turned around and saw her husband standing outside the kitchen with a leaf covering his eyes. He asked her furtively if she could see him. "Husband, what are you doing?" "Of course I can see you." Xia Pingan turned around and took another leaf to cover his eyes. "What about now? Can you see me?" "I can see it." Xia Pingan took another leaf to cover his eyes and walked to the kitchen door. "This time, can you see me?" "Of course I can. Will we be able to see it this time? How about this time?" "Let's see if we can see anything." Xia Pingan didn't give up as he kept changing the leaves to cover his eyes. He asked the same question for the third time, the fourth time, the 30th time, the 50th time, the 100th time. The woman in the kitchen finally lost her patience. When Xia Pingan came to the kitchen door with another leaf to cover his eyes, the woman said, "Well, you can't see it, you can't see it. Haha, you should have told me earlier. You made me come here so many times." Holding that piece of leaf, Xia Pingon burst out into laughter. When he found that the world of the realm pearl had not been shattered, he directly took that piece of leaf out of the door and came to the town. Under the vigilant and weird looks of the waiter and the boss of a jewelry store, he stealthily covered his eyes with the leaf and entered the store. Closely after that, he started to grab the jewelry in the store. To be honest, the shopkeeper and the waiter of the jewelry store were both shocked. They had seen thieves before, but they had not seen one like Xia Pingon. It wasn't until Xia Pingon grabbed a silver hairpin and was about to go out that the shopkeeper in the shop suddenly woke up and shouted, "Catch the thief!" Finally, Xia Pingon was sent to the government office. After hearing the whole story from Xia Pingon, the magistrate laughed so hard that he was out of breath in the lobby. After hearing that, all the bailiffs in the yamen also shrugged their shoulders and couldn't help laughing. "You idiot, you're really funny. You must have become stupid after reading too much. Do you think others can't see you just by covering your eyes with a leaf? Do you think you're a mantis? Quafu and Huainanzi even chased after the sun. Why didn't you do that? Well, don't do such a stupid thing next time. Go back." The magistrate waved his hand and didn't punish Xia Pingon. He treated this matter as a joke and let Xia Pingon go. As soon as Xia Pingon walked out of the yamen, the world of the realm pearl shattered. There was a bronze sculpture in the secret mandala. The sculpture depicted the story of a leaf that can't see. The scholar in the sculpture held up a leaf to cover his eyes as he walked down the street with a smug smile on his face. The leaf on the sculpture was as green as jade. It was the summoning spot for the spell. However, this spell technique was different from other spells. It required a blade of grass as a medium to cast it. It didn't matter if it was fresh or not. The upper limit of the divine power in the sky Kaisan increased a little and reached 6,152 points. The distance between him and the sixth sun realm had unknowingly shortened. Xia Pingon looked at the time on his pocket watch. Less than 10 minutes had passed. Fusing with this realm pearl was considered fast. He walked out of the cave and summoned Xuanwu back to the secret mandala. Then, he used an illusion to conceal his body and flew out of the cave. Soon, he landed in the valley. There were many ferns in the valley. Xia Pingon picked a leaf the size of a palm and cast the one-leaf blind spell technique. Once the spell technique was cast, the leaf in his hand grew bigger and covered Xia Pingon's entire body. Xia Pingon felt his aura fuse with the leaf's aura. He was the leaf, and the leaf was him. Then, all the aura disappeared into the surrounding environment and became one with it. Not only that, but as the leaf disappeared, Xia Pingon's body also became transparent. In the end, he completely disappeared. Even Xia Pingon couldn't see his own body. The one-leaf blind spell was too amazing. It didn't just blind him, it also completely dissolved his aura. Although this spell technique was similar to an illusion, the focus of the two was completely different. An illusion was also used to deceive one's vision. The focus was to create an illusion, but not to conceal oneself. However, this spell technique could make one completely hide in the environment. As long as one didn't make any big movements, the effect of the one-leaf blind spell would continue. As soon as Xia Pingon moved, his figure would be revealed. As soon as he stopped, his figure would disappear completely. As he moved, Xia Pingon's entire body was faintly discernible in the canyon. It was like a mantis hiding behind a leaf to catch a cicada. After a short while, Xia Pingon came to another stalagmite. He sat down cross-legged and quietly waited for the mantis blade bug to take the bait. This time, he waited for a long time. After a full day, another mantis blade bug emerged from a crack in the ground. The black mantis blade bug walked carefully among the rocks on the ground. It was very alert and moved very slowly. As it walked, it turned its head and used the compound eyes on its body to scan the surrounding environment and situation. Xia Pingon didn't move. He wanted to see if the mantis blade bug could discover him, who was protected by the one-leaf blind spell. When the mantis blade bug's compound eyes looked at the stalagmite that Xia Pingan was on, Xia Pingan was already prepared to attack. However, this time, the mantis blade bug's compound eyes scanned the place where Xia Pingan was hiding. It didn't find anything unusual, so it just glanced over. Not only that, but the mantis blade bug also walked towards Xia Pingan. When it was less than 5 meters away from Xia Pingan, it found a hidden corner and lay on the ground. Its 6 legs dug into the ground and trembled continuously. In the blink of an eye, it dug a big hole in the ground and hid its body in the hole. Then, it covered its body with the rocks as if it was lying in ambush and hunting. Interesting. When the mantis blade bug was lying in ambush, Xia Pingan licked his lips, took out his huge sword, and descended from the sky. Half a minute later, Xia Pingan put the mantis blade bug's corpse into the spatial storage. At the same time, he obtained his 3rd insect crystal. Chapter 392. More than 20 days later, in Black Wind Canyon / following Xia Pingan's low roar, the huge sword in his hand ruthlessly cut into the neck of the mantis blade bug that had just appeared in front of him. A bright and scorching flame followed the sharp blade of the huge sword. When the huge sword's blade broke through the carapace on the mantis blade bug's neck, the flame synchronization invaded the defenseless body of the mantis blade bug, causing even more damage to the mantis blade bug in an instant. When the flesh on the mantis blade bug's neck was cut open by the huge sword, it was burned by the flames. Large patches of flesh and tissue were directly carbonized and became brittle. Amidst the shrill shrieks, the mantis blade bug's movements suddenly stiffened. The sharp forelimbs that were sweeping towards Xia Pingan's back were blocked by the snaring net technique and instantly lost their power. Meanwhile, Xia Pingan's figure danced on the back of the mantis blade bug like an elf. He effortlessly turned his huge sword and smoothly sliced down horizontally. The mantis blade bug's head fell off. After half a month of fighting, Xia Pingan's experience in dealing with mantis blade bugs had become richer. His killing of the mantis blade bugs became smoother and easier. The combination of the soul tool battle technique and the summoner's spell technique also became more flexible. When he killed the mantis blade bugs again, he gradually felt like a butcher dismembering an ox. The fastest speed, the lowest consumption, and the most direct attack allowed the mantis blade bug to be killed in a situation where it couldn't struggle or resist. This mantis blade bug didn't even last 5 seconds in front of Xia Pingan before its head fell to the ground. Its huge body only twitched a little before it stopped moving. This was also the experience that Xia Pingan had gained from the battle. The moment the huge sword broke through the mantis blade bug's defense, the flame damage directly affected the mantis blade bug's head and neck. It could rapidly burn the nerves and sensitive organs in the mantis blade bug's neck and head. A small fireball technique could cause serious damage to the mantis blade bug under such circumstances. It was even more effective than the vermilion bird's flaming sky spell bombarding the mantis blade bug. This time, they did not encounter 1 mantis blade bug, but 3. After easily finishing off the first mantis blade bug, Xia Pingan's body leaped up agilely. He made an iron bridge in the air and easily dodged the other mantis blade bug's body that was charging at him like a cannonball and its 2 forelimbs that were like sharp swords that were sweeping at him. The huge sword in Xia Pingan's hand turned slightly, and the blade faced upwards. Using the mantis blade insect's own strength, he easily cut into the abdomen of the mantis blade insect that had passed over his head. In an instant, a large wound was cut open in the mantis blade insect's abdomen. Green blood spurted out of the mantis blade insect's body. The mantis blade bug that attacked Xia Pingan had just landed on the ground when Xia Pingan cast a small blinding spell on it. The mantis blade bug's abdomen was injured, and it was instantly blinded. The moment it landed, it staggered and fell heavily on the ground, almost unable to get up. Although the mantis blade bug did not die immediately, it had lost its ability to fight. It would not be able to threaten Xia Pingon for a short period of time. Xia Pingon's body was in the air. Like an elf, he somersaulted lightly and dodged the attack from the third mantis blade bug's forelimbs. The moment the mantis blade bug retracted its forelimbs, he cast another small net spell and entangled the mantis blade bug's forelimbs. Xia Pingon's body had already landed on the back of the third mantis blade bug. The giant sword in his hand pierced through the mantis blade bug's neck. Just as the black fog that protected the mantis blade bug from the spell surged up, the fire damage traveled along the blade of the giant sword to the organs around the mantis blade bug's neck. With a sizzling sound, the unique burnt smell of the mantis blade bug's flesh instantly filled the air. The green blood that had not yet sputtered out seemed to have been roasted dry by the flames, and did not splatter out at all. The severely injured mantis blade bug suddenly jumped up with its belly facing up and its back facing down. The sharp forelimbs that had been entangled by the mantis blade bug were suddenly covered in black frost, which spread toward its body. It seemed to want to freeze Xia Pingon and then crush him under its body. This was the reaction of the mantis blade bug when it fought for its life. The first time he encountered it, Xia Pingon was also shocked. However, after encountering it a few times, Xia Pingon was already used to it. Just as the mantis blade bug leaped up, Xia Pingon had already drawn his giant sword and leaped up as well. He maintained his distance from the mantis blade bug and did not come into direct contact with its body. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The mantis blade bug's body had just flipped over in the air, revealing the slightly soft, dark yellow carapace under its slightly soft neck that was protected by its sharp forelimbs. Xia Pingon roared angrily, and the giant sword in his hand had already slashed down fiercely. At the same time that the sword chopped off one of the mantis blade bug's forelimbs, the giant sword did not stop there. It cut into the softest part of the carapace under the mantis blade bug's neck. Gotcha! The ice on the third mantis blade bug's neck shattered, and its head fell off at the same time. At first glance, it looked as if the mantis blade bug had deliberately flipped over to let Xia Pingon chop off its head. Xia Pingon's foot stepped on the abdomen of the mantis blade bug that had fallen powerlessly. The armor on the mantis blade bug's abdomen made a loud cracking sound, as if it had been stepped on. The carapace on the mantis blade bug's abdomen suddenly accelerated, and at the same time, Xia Pingon's figure flashed like lightning, instantly appearing on the back of the mantis blade bug that had just recovered from the effects of the blinding spell. Why did he step on the mantis blade bug's abdomen? Because at this moment, Xia Pingon's body could explode with strength and speed. In a short distance, it was already faster than the flying ability of the summoning spell. The mantis blade bug that had its abdomen injured shook its head. It had just recovered from the effects of the blinding spell when Xia Pingon had already descended from the sky and stepped on the mantis blade bug's head again. At the same time, he cast the net spell, temporarily trapping the mantis blade bug's sharp forelimbs. Boom! Xia Pingon's strength was too great. This stomp was like the weight of Mount Tai. It directly stomped the huge body of the mantis blade bug that had just gotten up, causing it to lie heavily on the ground again. The mantis blade bug let out a roar, as if it was too angry. It had just regained its vision and stood up when it was once again pinned down by this human summoner. Just as it was about to wave its forelimbs, it was once again trapped by the snaring net spell. Of course, the snaring net spell could not trap its weapon. However, just as the mantis blade bug's forelimbs tore through the snaring net spell's restraint, Xia Pingon's greatsword had already cut through the flesh on its neck. The terrifying fire damage directly exploded on its neck and head, causing its body to completely stiffen. In an instant, it completely lost control of itself. The huge sword was like a guillotine. The strength of the sword was like a landslide. Xia Pingon gracefully and nimbly flipped over, dragged the sword, and pressed down, under the sharpness of the huge sword, the head of the third mantis blade bug fell unstoppably. This time, he dealt with these 3 mantis blade bugs cleanly and smoothly. It took less than a minute. The combination of spells, soul tools, body movements, and tactics was flawless. Xia Pingan wanted to give himself the Black Wind Canyon's Best Newcomer award. A hint of a smile unconsciously appeared at the corner of Xia Pingan's lip. It was also at this time that Xia Pingan received Boy Fortune's warning that other summoners were coming. Xia Pingan's heart trembled, and he hurriedly put away his huge sword. Just as he put away his huge sword, 2 figures suddenly descended from the sky and appeared over the canyon more than 2,000 meters above Xia Pingan's head. At a glance, they saw Xia Pingan and the 3 mantis blade bug corpses scattered around Xia Pingan. The 2 summoners looked to be in their 30s or 40s. They wore gorgeous black mage robes embroidered with gold. One of them held a snake-shaped longsword in his hand, and the other held a golden staff in his hand. The summoner with the longsword was slightly more muscular and looked very powerful. His eyes shone brightly, and he had a rough look on his face. The summoner with the staff had a white face and no beard. He had a high nose and a broad forehead. He looked like a talented person, but there was a twinkle in his eyes. To a summoner's vision, a distance of more than 2,000 meters was about the same as a person standing 20 meters away. The 2 summoners who flew over first glanced at Xia Pingan in the air, but they didn't pay much attention to him. Xia Pingan's gentle appearance was too harmless in the god-slaying bug world. He was completely a passerby. Moreover, Xia Pingan didn't look like a summoner in the Nether Passage realm. His aura didn't have much of a deterrent force either. However, when their gazes swept over the corpses of the 3 mantis blade bugs around Xia Pingan, they were all shocked. After looking at each other, they quickly flew towards Xia Pingan. Those 3 mantis blade bugs had insect crystals in their bodies, and they might even have realm pearls. Xia Pingan couldn't just ignore them. Seeing that other summoners had arrived, Xia Pingan could only put the corpses of the 3 mantis blade bugs into his spatial equipment as quickly as possible and prepare to leave. Ha ha ha, brother, don't be nervous. Just now we saw faint flashes of fire on the ground here from afar. We knew that a summoner was fighting with those bugs. We were just about to come over and help, but we didn't expect this brother to be so secretive. You killed all 3 mantis blade bugs by yourself in such a short time. I'm impressed. These 3 mantis blade bugs, spoils of war, are yours, brother. We won't snatch them away. Before he landed, the pale-faced summoner with a magic staff spoke loudly in the air. At the same time, he laughed loudly as if he had come to help. As they spoke, the 2 summoners had already landed on the ground together. They were less than 20 meters away from Xia Pingan. They still maintained a safe and appropriate social distance between unfamiliar summoners when they met in the wild. They appeared very polite. The more powerful a summoner was, the greater the safe social distance when they met in the wild. This was because if they were too close, once one party suddenly attacked, the other party would appear to be in a passive position. The second chapter was a little late. During the holidays, the divine beast was at home, and the tiger became the target of summoning. The update time would be delayed. Chapter 393. Seeing how courteous the 2 summoners were, Xia Pingan smiled and cupped his hands towards the 2 summoners who had come to help, maintaining basic courtesy. You're too courteous, brothers. I'm just about to leave. If the 2 of you want to continue hunting mantis blade insects, please feel free to do so. This place doesn't belong to me alone. The pale-faced summoner with the staff was still smiling. Ha ha, brother, are you also thinking of joining the 10,000 deities sect? That's right. Xia Pingan nodded. Most of the summoners in this Black Wind Canyon want to join the 10,000 deities sect. What a coincidence, so do we. We're currently collecting insect crystals. Why don't we form a team? We're just looking for a partner. With 3 people, we'll be more confident in facing Nether Passage realm insects. As the pale-faced summoner spoke, he waved the staff in his hand and pointed at the longsword in the hands of the person beside him. Both of us have soul tools, and we're lacking a capable partner. Oh right, I'm Meng Yitong and he's Ming Tian. We've only known each other for a few days. May I know your name, brother? I'm Chui Li. Brother Chui Li, do you have any other partners? Xia Pingon smiled. I already have a partner, and I'm about to meet him. Hearing Xia Pingon's words, Meng Yitong's eyes moved, and he said with a sincere expression, That's great. If Brother Chui Li has any other partners, the 4 of us can form a team. We're just strangers who met by chance, so I won't disturb you any further. We'll meet again if fate wills it. Goodbye. After Xia Pingon finished speaking, he nimbly rose into the air and flew towards the canyon. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of the 2. Ming Tian wanted to chase after him, but he was pulled back by Meng Yitong. Meng Yitong squinted at the place where Xia Pingon had disappeared, and a malicious sneer appeared on his face. Big brother, why did you pull me back? That Chui brat ran away. Ming Tian glanced at the canyon sky with greedy eyes, and anxiously stomped his foot. That Chui Li must have a top-grade soul tool. A top-grade soul tool, it's priceless. Big brother, you saw it. The 3 mantis blade insects just now were all beheaded, and there weren't many traces of spells. His soul tool could even behead the mantis blade insects. We've been in the Immortal City for so long, but we haven't seen such a powerful soul tool. That kind of soul tool. We've been in Immortal City for a long time, but that's all. That see you. That Chuizes. And, in. I also know that Chui brat must have a top-grade soul tool. Don't worry, that Chui Li is very vigilant. When we came over just now, he immediately put away his soul tool. He didn't fall into our trap. He's already on guard against us. It won't be easy to catch him. Ming Tian glanced at both ends of the canyon, and his face revealed a shrewd expression. He licked his lips. If the 2 of us attacked just now, we wouldn't have been able to take him down in 3 to 5 moves. It would be bad if we were discovered by other summoners in public. Then what do we do now? That Chui brat should be alone. He said he had companions just now, but that was just a lie. Do you think he can fool me with such petty tricks? Meng Yitong sneered. I guess he's not going to meet up with his companions, nor will he return to Immortal City now. He's looking for a place to rest. Just now, he killed the 3 mantis blade insects near the underground crevice. He must have been lying in ambush here for a long time before encountering them. He should be very familiar with the surrounding terrain, so he won't give up so easily. Big brother, what do we do now? Ming Tian asked anxiously in a rough voice. Meng Yitong said confidently, He can't escape from my grasp. When I landed just now, I scattered a layer of shadowless flower pollen in the air. He must have left some on him when he left just now. Let's wait for a while and wait for him to find a place to settle down. When he thinks he's safe, we'll go find him. At that time, no one will know and we'll take care of him without attracting any attention. The soul tool on him is still waiting for us brothers to collect, Ming Tian grinned. Hee, a mere 6-sun realm summoner actually has a top-grade soul tool. He's courting death, so he can't blame us. As the 2 spoke, they had already cast a mute barrier to block out the sound, so they didn't have to worry about anyone hearing them. However, the 2 of them didn't know that while they were speaking, Child Fortune was standing on Ming Tian's head, clenching his small fists and glaring at the 2 of them. In the blink of an eye, Child Fortune's figure flashed and disappeared. High in the sky of the canyon, 10,000 meters above the ground, the canyon below was already covered by the clouds of fog with the smell of sulfur. Xia Pingon, who was flying, had a cold expression on his face. After coming to Black Wind Canyon for so many days, Xia Pingon had always been a lone wolf. He had tried his best to be careful, but he didn't expect to still get into trouble. My 7-star sword whip is a top-grade soul tool? Xia Pingon muttered to himself as he looked down at the canyon below. This was because this soul tool was created by Xia Pingon himself. The soul power injected into the soul tool was more than twice the amount of soul power he had in his body. If it was an ordinary summoner, it was impossible for them to separate so much soul power and inject it into the soul tool. Xia Pingon had previously thought that his soul tool would be of a very high grade, at least stronger than the average soul tool. He had not expected that a soul tool that could sever the mantis blade bug's head would already be considered a top-notch soul tool in the eyes of others. This kind of trouble was impossible to guard against. As for Meng Yitong and Ming Tian, from the tone of their words, it wasn't the first time they had done this kind of killing and looting business. They might have come to Black Wind Canyon this time to find a target. Don't you want my soul tool? Then come. Xia Pingon smiled coldly. Half an hour later, Xia Pingon had already flown more than 100,000 meters above the ground in Black Wind Canyon. Here, on one side of the canyon, there were several cracks in the mountain that were several thousand meters wide, forming a strange geographical environment of a canyon within a canyon and a valley within a valley. An underground river flowed down from the cracks, forming a waterfall that hung in the sky. In the cracks of the mountain, there were several large and small caves that were hidden and deep. Xia Pingon flashed and entered one of the caves. After more than an hour, Meng Yitong and Ming Tian flew over. In front of Meng Yitong, there was a strange golden bee flying. When the bee flew here, it directly flew towards the cave where Xia Pingon had just hidden. Chapter 394. Inside the cave there were twists and turns. Outside the cave, there was a layer of falling water curtain. The golden bee was flying in the cave, emitting a faint golden light. It was especially conspicuous in the dark cave. It was silent like a strange firefly. The bee was flying towards the center of the cave, as if it was attracted by something. Good boy, you really know how to choose a place. So you were hiding here? Ming Tian licked his lips, a sinister smile appearing on his face. Be careful, Meng Yitong reminded. Let's see what other tricks he can play. The two of them continued to follow the bee into the cave. After sneaking into the cave for several thousand meters, something strange happened. The golden bee flying in front suddenly froze in the air, turning into a lump of ice, then fell to the ground and shattered. Meng Yitong and Ming Tian, who were following behind the golden bee, both cried out in alarm and retreated without thinking. Meng Yitong waved the staff in his hand and summoned a flame-like shield. Ming Tian stretched out his hand, and a giant and a water shield appeared in front of him. The giant raised a spinning water shield in its hand, and the fire shield protected the giant's back. The two of them stood behind the giant and the two shields, cooperating with each other. A huge black Xuanwu with the head of a turtle and the body of a snake suddenly appeared in the cave in front of them, and a domineering cold breath instantly covered the entire cave. In the cave that was filled with stalactites, in an instant the stalactites, the ground, and the walls on both sides of the cave were all frozen by black ice. The entire cave instantly turned into a black world of ice, and the temperature dropped rapidly. Meng Yitong and Ming Tian could not help but shiver, and their expressions changed slightly. Just now, everything had happened too suddenly. If they were not prepared and were hit by that Xuanwu, they would definitely be seriously injured. Under that cold breath that could freeze everything, the giant's water shield instantly shattered, and the summoned giant turned into a lump of ice, which also shattered with a crash. The burning flame shield emitted a dense cold air, and was instantly extinguished. Meng Yitong and Ming Tian immediately leapt into the air. Their feet did not touch the ground, allowing them to avoid the damage from the terrifying frost breath. After a breath, the black tortoise turned the cave into an icehouse, and its figure disappeared all of a sudden. Meng Yidong and Ming Tian were already prepared to go all out, but after waiting for a few seconds, they realized that there was no movement inside the cave. That guy called Shui Li also didn't come out, causing the two of them to be slightly stunned. "Big brother, why isn't that Shui Li coming out?" Ming Tian asked. Meng Yidong squinted his eyes and looked into the dark depths of the cave. His eyes moved as he suddenly thought of something. That Xuanwu just now might be a gatekeeper for that guy surnamed Shui. That guy surnamed Shui might not know that we're here yet. Ming Tian immediately became excited. "Big brother, you mean? Let's go in and take a look." Meng Yidong waved his hand, summoning a warrior whose body was flickering with red light. That warrior was very agile. He held a long saber in his hand. The moment he was summoned, he rushed into the cave to explore the way for the two people. Meng Yidong and Ming Tian followed behind that warrior. After entering the cave for more than 200 meters, Meng Yidong and Ming Tian finally understood why they didn't see Shui Li come out. It was because in front of them, in the deepest part of the cave, there was a translucent cocoon of light wrapping around Shui Li's body. Woof 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 woof. The summoned black dragon was guarding beside that cocoon of light. It bared its fangs at the two who suddenly appeared and the summoned warrior, as if it wanted to protect the person behind it who was fusing with the realm pearl. "Ha, so this guy is fusing with the realm pearl here. This is a gift from the heavens to us brothers." Meng Yidong laughed wildly and let out a sigh of relief. He didn't care about the summoned black dragon at all. He waved his hand lightly, and the warrior he summoned rushed forward. While the black dragon bit the warrior's calf, the warrior slashed with his blade, causing the black dragon to dissipate. Fighting wasn't the black dragon's specialty. Ha ha ha, no matter how cunning this Shui Li is, how can he escape from Big Brother's scheme? He knows that his body is stained with the pollen of the shadowless flower. That top-grade soul tool belongs to us. Ming Tian laughed loudly. Looking at Shui Li who was fusing with the realm pearl, the two brothers completely relaxed and walked directly towards Shui Li. The summoner who was fusing with the realm pearl was like a baby, completely unable to resist. What did the two of them have to worry about? It's a pity that my shadowless golden bee. It's not easy to raise one, but it was destroyed by this guy. Meng Yidong shook his head regretfully. As long as we get that top-grade soul tool, one shadowless golden bee is nothing. Big Brother can even raise a box of them in the future. Ming Tian grinned. Haha, that's true. This guy can use top-grade soul tools. Maybe there are other good things in his spatial equipment. Let me send him to heaven. Ming Tian took a few steps forward, raised his hand, and was about to shoot out an icicle. But at this moment, a change that the two of them couldn't talk about suddenly occurred. The ground of the cave suddenly shattered. 4 giant arms and 4 devil vines that flickered with a faint red light drilled out from the ground. The 4 giant arms and 4 devil vines almost simultaneously grabbed and entangled the legs of the two people, making them unable to move. Golden light flashed on the ground. 2 circle prison spells were activated. Together with the giant arms and devil vines, the two people were unable to move in an instant. Just a split second was enough. Just as the two people's expressions changed, light and shadow flickered beside Ming Tian who was about to deal with Shui Li. In an instant, Xia Pingan's figure appeared. Xia Pingan raised his greatsword high and aimed it at Ming Tian, fiercely chopping down. When the light and shadow flickered, it was because Xia Pingan moved. The greatsword fell, so his figure was suddenly revealed. It turned out that Ming Tian had already walked in front of Xia Pingan with his greatsword raised high. Xia Pingan was waiting for someone to deliver himself to his door. It was too fast, and there was no time to react at all. One was waiting to strike while the other was unknowingly walking under the blade of the guillotine. In that split second, Ming Tian's astonished expression was still on his face, and before he could react, the giant sword had easily split him in half from head to toe. Crash! Ming Tian's spatial equipment exploded. Gold coins, realm beads, and all kinds of strange things exploded all over the ground. Meng Yidong's reaction speed was fast. The moment his legs were entangled by the giant's hands and devil vines, his whole body suddenly burst into raging flames. That flame was very terrifying. It immediately dissipated the devil vines entangling his legs, and at the same time burned the giant's hands. The moment Ming Tian was killed, Meng Yidong fiercely stomped one of his feet on the ground. A large number of sharp metal thorns emerged from the ground. With a boom, the prison circle spell was destroyed. That large number of metal thorns, with Meng Yidong as the center, suddenly spread out like a ripple. It attacked everything in the cave indiscriminately. Even the warrior he summoned was instantly turned into light and dissipated under the attack of the metal thorns that suddenly emerged from the ground. The light cocoon, that was originally fusing with the realm beads, was also shattered by the metal thorns. When the light cocoon disappeared, the Xia Pingon inside the light cocoon suddenly turned into an assassin wrapped in black clothes. That assassin stepped on the metal thorns on the ground. His figure was like a nimble flying smoke. He also rushed towards Meng Yidong. A cold light appeared in his hand and went straight for Meng Yidong's throat. That light cocoon just now was only an illusion. And in the illusion, there was also an assassin that looked like Xia Pingon. But Xia Pingon was even faster than the assassin. After killing Ming Tian with a single blow, Xia Pingon rushed towards Meng Yidong. Almost at the same time that Meng Yidong's body burst into flames and his foot stomped on the ground to destroy the prison circle spell, Xia Pingon roared. The giant sword in his hand swept over, not giving Meng Yidong even half a second to react. Kill! Xia Pingon was like a god descending from the heavens. His hair fluttered and his eyes shone brightly. With a single blow, he cut off several of the metal thorns that Meng Yidong had summoned in front of him. The tip of the top-level soul tool passed through Meng Yidong's neck without any obstruction. Bang! Meng Yidong's body turned into a cloud of black mist and dissipated. The head that was sent flying by Xia Pingon's sword turned into a tree stump. At the same time, 300 meters away, Meng Yidong's figure suddenly staggered out from the cloud of black mist. Meng Yidong's face was pale gold and he was in a sorry state. He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked in Xia Pingon's direction in fear. Then he turned around and ran. His figure turned into light and flew out of the cave. Damn! Substitution technique. Xia Pingon did not expect that Meng Yidong would have such a secret technique. He did not even think about it and chased after Meng Yidong. Meng Yidong was already scared out of his wits and did not have the heart to continue fighting. Moreover, his body seemed to be injured and he only wanted to escape. It had to be said that if a Sixth Sun Realm summoner really wanted to escape, other summoners of the same level would not be able to catch up. Especially the current Xia Pingon, who was actually only a 5-Sun Realm summoner. By the time Xia Pingon chased out of the cave, that Meng Yidong had already disappeared into the void of the canyon outside. It was too late to catch up. Xia Pingon did not give chase and quickly returned to the cave. He looked at the items that Ming Tian's spatial equipment had dropped on the ground. His eyes moved and with a wave of his hand, he stored all those items into his spatial equipment. In the next second, Xia Pingon also stored the summoned assassin and giant into the secret mandala. His figure flashed and he disappeared. Chapter 395. A top-notch soul tool that only relied on strength and not effacely to chop off the head of the mantis blade bug and break through its body's defense? The man wearing a red mage robe sitting on the high seat, his hand that was holding the crystal wine cup froze. His entire person revealed a dignified expression. His brows were slightly knitted together, his body leaned forward and placed one hand on his knee. He narrowed his eagle-like sharp eyes and stared at Meng Yitong, who was standing in front of him. His voice was abnormally calm. Meng Yitong, do you know what you are saying? This kind of soul tool, even in the entire immortal city, there are only a few that can be seen. Did you see it with your own eyes? Meng Yitong's face was somewhat ashen, but he still gritted his teeth and nodded. Indeed, I saw it with my own eyes. That soul tool is a rarely seen giant sword. Its sharpness is unparalleled. Oh, tell me, how did you see it? My brother and I were exploring the Black Wind Canyon and coincidentally met an outer sect disciple of the 10,000 Gods sect called Chui Li. We went together with that person, and after the three of us entered a cave together, the two of us first found that giant sword soul tool in the cave. Speaking until here, Meng Yitong's face revealed grief and indignation. I didn't expect that Chui Li to be such a despicable, shameless, and treacherous villain. He forgets righteousness for the sake of profit. After seeing that giant sword, he realized that the giant sword's power was limitless. He used the excuse of admiring it and tricked the giant sword from my brother's hands to his own. Then, he suddenly attacked my brother and killed him with just one slash. I was caught off guard and was also heavily injured. I was only lucky to escape with my life, so I hurriedly rushed to the immortal city to report to Deacon Ling. Oh, didn't you say that the giant sword could chop off the head of the mantis blade bug? Don't tell me that after that Chui Li killed your brother and injured you, he also killed 3 mantis blade bugs in front of you? The man wearing a red mage robe sitting on the high seat was not so easily fooled. After hearing Meng Yitong's words, his mouth revealed a mocking smile, and asked again. If a newbie who had just entered the industry obtained something good, it was indeed possible for them to be tricked. However, who were the people who came to the god-slaying bug world? These 6 Sun Realm summoners were all veterans. They had seen all sorts of dangers. These fellows who were about to turn into spirits would actually be able to unsuspectingly lend a supreme-grade soul tool to a companion they had just met to admire it and then be tricked? This matter was full of suspicious points, and this suspicious point just happened to explain how Meng Yitong knew that person called Chui Li, and how that top-grade soul armament ended up in Chui Li's hands. It was just barely enough to justify everything. Deacon Ling, there were mantis blade bugs in that cave. My brother, Mingtian, used that giant sword to chop off the heads of 3 mantis blade bugs. In our great joy, we heard that Chui Li wanted to borrow the soul tool to take a look, so we let our guard down and lent the supreme-grade soul tool to Chui Li. However, we didn't expect that Chui Li had long been harboring murderous intentions, and wanted to take the treasure that we brothers discovered for himself. Meng Yitong's tongue was as eloquent as a lotus flower. He knew that there were loopholes in his explanation, but that didn't matter. What mattered was what this Deacon Ling in front of him chose to believe. As Meng Yitong spoke, he also quietly raised his head to size up Deacon Ling's expression. After seeing Deacon Ling's expression, he was relieved. This was because when Deacon Ling had heard about the supreme-grade soul tool, although his expression was calm and mocking, as if he didn't want to completely believe his words, Deacon Ling's eyes were shining. Meng Yitong was very familiar with that kind of light. It was greed. What do you mean by looking for me? Deacon Ling fiddled with the crystal cup in his hand and began to adjust his tone. I can't just listen to your side of the story for this kind of thing. Deacon Ling is responsible for maintaining the discipline of Immortal City. As long as Deacon Ling can avenge my brother Mingtian and kill that Chui Li, I'm willing to offer that supreme-grade soul tool on him to Deacon Ling. My brother Mingtian will be able to die in peace. So it's like that. Deacon Ling's eyebrows twitched. What does that Chui Li look like? Do you have a portrait of him? Yes, please take a look, Deacon Ling. Meng Yitong bent over and took 2 steps forward, handing over a portrait scroll. This is that person's face. I've carefully examined it, and it shouldn't be disguised. However, whether that person's name is Chui Li or not still needs to be investigated. That person's heart is like a snake's and extremely vicious, so it's possible that he's using an alias. Deacon Ling unfolded the portrait, which was precisely Chui Li's appearance. He looked refined and cultured, and at least from his appearance, he didn't look like the kind of person who would resort to unscrupulous means. Deacon Ling took 2 glances at the portrait before looking at Meng Yitong. The corner of his mouth twitched. All right, I understand. Meng Yitong took another step forward. Deacon Ling, can you issue a bounty? I'm willing to offer 2 million gold coins as a reward. Deacon Ling's expression immediately turned cold. He glanced at Meng Yitong with an unkind gaze. His gaze was as cold as a blade. The aura on his body immediately pressed over. Are you telling me what to do? Meng Yitong's hair stood on end, as if a slippery and cold poisonous snake slid down his collar from his back. His entire body was covered in cold sweat. Although there was only a difference of 1 realm between the 6th Sun realm and the 7th Sun realm, the disparity in strength between the 2 parties was extremely large and difficult to bridge. When facing a 7th Sun realm expert, a 6th Sun realm expert would feel powerless and weak like a child facing an adult. Meng Yitong hurriedly took 2 steps back and lowered his head. I don't dare, everything will be decided by Deacon Ling. You can leave. I understand this matter, I'll deal with it according to the situation. Deacon Ling impatiently waved his hand, already giving the order to leave. Then I'll take my leave. Meng Yitong retreated and left the room. Then, under the guidance of the 2 summoned servants, he left Deacon Ling's mansion in Undying City. After walking out of Deacon Ling's mansion, Meng Yitong heaved a sigh of relief. Deacon Ling did not return Chui Li's portrait, which actually meant that Deacon Ling had already taken over this matter. Once he returned to Undying City, he hurriedly came to look for Deacon Ling. Meng Yitong had no choice but to strike first to gain the upper hand. If Chui Li returned to Undying City first to report him and Mingtian, according to the rules of Undying City, he and Mingtian would be charged with the death penalty for robbing and killing a fellow sect member. Once such an outcome occurred, even if he did not die, he could only escape from Undying City in the future and flee to the ends of the world, ready to face the 10,000 gods sect's bounty at any time. Therefore, Meng Yitong threw caution to the wind. Fortunately, the top-grade soul weapon in Chui Li's hand was enough to make Chui Li die without a burial place. After Meng Yitong left Deacon Ling's mansion, he did not go far. Instead, he went to a nearby restaurant and ordered some wine and dishes. Then, he stared at Deacon Ling's mansion. However, after more than 10 minutes, Meng Yitong saw a figure flying out of Deacon Ling's mansion. The figure was like lightning, flying towards the Hall of Affairs in the city. Meng Yitong finally let out a long sigh of relief. Once Chui Li was wanted, in the end, even if Chui Li had the chance to report him, Meng Yitong would not be able to testify. Then, both sides would have something to talk about and he would not fall into a desperate situation. You think you're so great just because you have a top-grade soul weapon? You'll soon know what it means to have a sinister heart. Meng Yitong narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself, revealing a cold smile on his face. And just as Meng Yitong was drinking wine in the restaurant, Xia Pingan, who had chased Meng Yitong all the way here, had almost reached the outskirts of Undying City. Once Child of Fortune was far away, he could not lock onto his target. However, the Black Dragon could always sense Meng Yitong's aura. Xia Pingan had chased after Meng Yitong all the way here. The 5 Sun Realm Xia Pingan's flying ability was not inferior to the 6 Sun Realm Meng Yitong's, so he did not catch up halfway. Seeing that Meng Yitong actually went straight to Undying City without any scruples after leaving Black Wind Canyon, Xia Pingan became more cautious and completed a transformation midway. At this moment, Xia Pingan was no longer that refined Shui Li. Instead, he had already changed his appearance. He had turned into a bald man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a horse on his arm. He wore a summoner's armor and was over 2 meters tall. He was completely different from Xia Pingan and Shui Li's previous appearance. Xia Pingan did not know why he had transformed into such an appearance. It was just that when he transformed, this huge contrast with his previous appearance naturally appeared in his mind. Then, Xia Pingan activated a secret transformation technique and changed his appearance to return to Undying City. As soon as Xia Pingan landed at the entrance of Undying City, Child of Fortune jumped out from his secret mandala and immediately sensed Meng Yidong's aura. In a few flashes, Child of Fortune appeared in the restaurant where Meng Yidong was drinking. He sat on Meng Yidong's head and locked onto Meng Yidong's trays. Xia Pingan grinned and swaggered directly towards the restaurant where Meng Yidong was at. Chapter 396. When Xia Pingan arrived at the restaurant, Meng Yidong was still eating and drinking. Meng Yidong was probably starving after flying non-stop to Immortal City for the past few days. A summoner of the Sixth Sun realm wasn't at the point where he could go without food and drink. The business in the restaurant was very good. 2/3 of the tables were occupied, and there were people both upstairs and downstairs. The waiters, chefs, and shopkeepers in the restaurant were all summoned by the summoner to serve the customers who came to spend money in the restaurant. Of course, this was Immortal City, 10,000 divine sects territory. Few summoners dared to dine and dash in the city. Xia Pingan did not go up to the second floor of the restaurant. Instead, he stayed on the first floor of the restaurant and ordered some food and wine. He began to wolf down his food while Boy of Fortune stared at Meng Yidong from the second floor of the restaurant. More than 10 minutes later, Meng Yidong thought about how Ming Tian had died under Xia Pingan's saber and was both afraid and glad. Finding Deacon Ling could temporarily alleviate his crisis. But when he thought about how the supreme-grade soul weapon that he could have gotten had flown away just like that and how he had gotten himself covered in a stench, Meng Yidong was filled with worry and unwittingly heaved a sigh of relief. Under these circumstances, the wine jug on the table was emptied in no time. "Waiter, another jug of wine." Meng Yidong shook the wine jug and called out to the waiter downstairs. "All right, sir, please wait a moment." At this time, Xia Pingan was also almost done eating. Seeing that Meng Yong wanted more wine upstairs, Xia Pingan's eyes moved, and a smile floated on the corner of his mouth. He also called over the waiter, "Waiter, the bill." "Sir, 220 gold coins." The waiter walked over and said a number. In Shangjing, this wine and food didn't cost a single gold coin, but here it cost this much and there was no price to negotiate. Xia Pingan reckoned that the 10,000 divine sects Immortal City could make an astronomical amount of money every day just by running this city. Xia Pingan directly threw 220 gold coins onto the table and was about to leave the restaurant. However, at the counter on the first floor of the restaurant, a waiter was about to bring a jug of wine to the second floor when Xia Pingan and the waiter passed by each other. Xia Pingan tilted his body slightly, dodging the waiter. In the blink of an eye, Xia Pingan bent his finger and flicked a bit of the black evil spirit into the mouth of the wine jug. When the wine was poured, the wine in the jug would be mixed with the black evil spirit's poison and poured out together with the black evil spirit's poison. The entire process was like an antelope hanging its horn, light, graceful, natural, and completely traceless. With Xia Pingan's current skills, not to mention the waiter carrying the wine, even the summoners dining in the restaurant wouldn't notice that Xia Pingan had already poisoned the wine in the waiter's jug the moment he passed by the waiter. Xia Pingan immediately left the restaurant and walked towards the street. The waiter carried the wine up to the second floor and brought the jug of wine in front of Meng Yidong. "Sir, the wine you wanted is here." Meng Yidong waved his hand and the waiter left. He then poured himself another cup. Everyone would have a kind of cognitive laziness. Meng Yidong was the same. Now that he was in the immortal city, his vigilance was relaxed. Moreover, he was fine after drinking a jug of wine in the restaurant. Therefore, he didn't care about the second jug of wine in the restaurant. After pouring himself a cup of wine, he raised the cup and drank it in one gulp. Just as the cup of wine entered his throat, Meng Yidong smacked his lips. Just as he was about to pour himself a second cup, his complexion suddenly changed. Then, his white face instantly turned black. His body trembled and his hand moved. With a crash, all the dishes on the table were swept to the ground by him. All of a sudden, the cups and plates were in a mess. This movement also alarmed the diners on the second floor of the restaurant. When the diners on the second floor of the restaurant turned their heads to look at Meng Yidong, they discovered that Meng Yidong suddenly stood up. His hands were tightly grabbing his throat. His body was stiff. His eyes were bloodshot and protruding. Like a dead fish, he seemed to be in great pain. He opened his mouth and wanted to scream. However, he couldn't make any sound. In just 2 breaths of time, the skin on Meng Yidong's face and hands had completely turned black. He staggered a step forward. He wanted to say something. Then, all the diners on the second floor were shocked to see that Meng Yidong's hair, fingers, and skin began to turn into black sand and flowed down from his body. Meng Yidong was like a person piled up by sand. He used his last frightened expression to see his hands and body turning into black sand bit by bit. With a crash, they scattered all over the ground. Only his clothes, shoes, and other things on his body were still intact. However, they were also covered by the black sand. Outside the restaurant, Xia Pingan was already half a street away. He didn't look back and his footsteps didn't stop. He just watched all this coldly through Boy of Fortune. If a truly powerful killer wanted to kill someone, he didn't need to be earth-shattering. He only needed to do something insignificant at the right time and in the right environment. Killing someone could be as light as the wind and clouds. It was also important to pay attention to the right time, place, and people. Eliminating scum, in fact, didn't need to pay too much attention. The black poison matched that trash just right. It could be considered as getting rid of a scourge for the world. And thinking that he had almost turned into Meng Yidong's current appearance, Xia Pingan also had some palpitations. Such a terrible poison was really impossible to guard against. Black poison. Some of the summoners who were eating on the second floor of the restaurant screamed in horror. Then, all the summoners bounced up from their chairs like springs under their buttocks. No one dared to move their chopsticks to drink. The words black poison were too powerful. It was like a horrible curse. Not only the people on the second floor of the restaurant, but even the diners on the first floor were startled when they found out what was going on upstairs. On the second floor of the restaurant, following Meng Yidong's death, his spatial equipment also dropped. With a crash, the gold coins, realm beads, divine sense crystals, his soul tool, magic staff, and some other strange things in his spatial equipment all fell to the ground and mixed together with the black sand on the ground. There were too many gold coins. As the gold coins poured out, the floor of the restaurant couldn't bear the huge weight. In just 2 short moments, the entire second floor of the restaurant collapsed under the weight of the gold coins. The entire restaurant was in chaos. Be careful, the food and drinks in this restaurant have black fiend poison. Everyone, quickly retreat, a summoner shouted. He grabbed a realm pearl that Meng Yidong had dropped in front of him and directly soared into the sky. The other summoners weren't fools. At this time, the second floor of the restaurant collapsed. Dust flew everywhere and chaos filled the air. This was the perfect time to fish in troubled waters. In order to protect themselves, the summoners in the restaurant all flew up or summoned their shields and quickly left the half-collapsed restaurant. Of course, when they left, Whether or not they would casually steal the items dropped by others would depend on their own luck. At this time, Xia Pingan was half a street away from the restaurant. He seemed to have been alarmed by the commotion in the restaurant. He finally turned around and calmly looked at the collapsed restaurant and the summoners that flew out one by one. Child of Fortune was also present, so he saw that when Meng Yidong's magic staff was pushed to the first floor by a large pile of gold coins, it was grabbed by a female summoner wearing a blue dress and a veil. Then in the next second, that female summoner directly flew up. Without stopping for half a second, she actually flew out of Undying City. She didn't even stay in the city. Damn, that woman was also a ruthless person. The people on the street were alarmed. By the time the surrounding people reacted, they all looked towards the restaurant. They only saw that in the middle of the collapsed restaurant, there was a small hill of gold coins that was 7 to 8 meters high. In the ruins of the restaurant, there were gold coins everywhere. Even the shopkeeper and waiters of the restaurant were buried by the gold coins. The summoners walking on the street were dumbfounded. They had no idea what had happened in the restaurant. How could there be so many gold coins all of a sudden? The street was strangely quiet for a few seconds. Then, Xia Pingan saw a guy near him staring at the pile of gold coins in the restaurant. His throat trembled twice and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then he shouted with a righteous face, "Someone is injured, quickly save them." After saying that guy rushed towards the pile of gold coins in the restaurant. No, he rushed towards the restaurant. This shout immediately woke up many smart people who were eager for justice. Therefore, a large group of people rushed towards the collapsed restaurant. They didn't save the people in the restaurant, but the pile of gold coins was rapidly decreasing. A few minutes later, when the summoner of 10,000 Sacred Clan, who was in charge of maintaining order in the city, arrived, there was less than 1/10 of the gold coins left in the restaurant. However, these gold coins were enough to compensate for the loss of the restaurant. There was still a lot left. Inside the restaurant, it was a complete mess. Everything had been destroyed, plundered. None of the summoners in the restaurant stayed behind to cause trouble, and all of them had fled. Only in the ruins of the restaurant, some black gravel left behind by the black baleful poison could still be found, telling what had just happened here. After returning to Immortal City for half an hour, Xia Pingan had killed Meng Yidong. At this moment, with a faint smile, Xia Pingan had already left the street where the restaurant was located. He walked on the street casually. With a flash, Child Prodigy returned to Xia Pingan's side and returned to the secret mandala. I wonder whether Meng Yidong told others about me? When Xia Pingan was thinking about this question, he found that a blue light spot suddenly exploded in the sky above Immortal City like firework. It was Chui Li's face in the light spot. At this moment, a dignified voice resounded in Immortal City. This man is called Chui Li, an outer disciple of Immortal City. Chui Li is suspected of robbing and killing his fellow disciples. He is officially wanted by the Manager Hall of Immortal City. Anyone who can provide information about him will be rewarded with 1 million gold coins. Xia Pingan became stunned for a second. F***CK. Chapter 397. He didn't expect Meng Yidong to leak out his identity so quickly. The Hall of Duty of the Immortal City had issued a bounty for his arrest so quickly. It seemed like Meng Yidong must have found someone before he came to the Immortal City, to play the blame game and pin the crime of robbing and killing a fellow disciple on his head. Only then did he have the leeway to turn the situation around. Xia Pingan was also standing on the street. He raised his head and looked at the refined Chui Li's shadow in the sky, and secretly analyzed in his heart. When the shadow in the sky appeared, everyone in the city could see it. The huge Immortal City was momentarily quiet. This kind of arrest warrant was more useful than any advertisement. It could let everyone know in an instant. Fortunately, he had already made preparations before returning to the Immortal City. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. 1,000,000 gold coins to arrest or kill an outer sect disciple, this kind of cheap deal, many summoners in the city wouldn't easily miss it if they encountered it. When the shadow in the sky and the voice that resounded throughout the city dissipated, the people on the street started to move again. Xia Pingan directly walked towards the Hall of Duty of the Immortal City. He secretly mocked himself in his heart. He couldn't use Chui Li's identity anymore, but fortunately, changing his appearance was an easy matter for him. This was the helplessness of the weak. Just like an octopus and a chameleon, when the individual wasn't strong enough, they could only rely on unpredictable disguises to ensure their survival. Right now, he was more or less like an octopus and a chameleon. He didn't know when he could truly become strong. The humiliation of an inchworm, in order to seek trust. The sting of a dragon, in order to survive. A real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. This little setback was nothing. Smiling bitterly, Xia Pingan comforted himself in his heart. He took a deep breath and once again pulled himself together. He raised his head and puffed out his chest as he quickened his pace. People were coming and going on the street of the Immortal City. Many people were discussing the arrest warrant as they walked. They didn't notice that the wanted person had already transformed into a burly man and walked past them with his head held high. Half an hour later, Xia Pingan arrived at the square outside the Hall of Duty of the Immortal City. He passed through the square and directly walked towards the tower of the Hall of Duty. That tower was the tallest building in the Immortal City. It was exceptionally majestic, like a bunch of swords inserted together. It was awe-inspiring. Entering the Hall of Duty's huge arched door was enough for the summoned giant to easily walk inside. Entering the Hall of Duty, there was a huge dome and a large hall under the dome. On both sides of the large hall, there was a flight of stairs that could go upstairs. This layout was somewhat similar to the shrine of the summoner's secret altar. The layout was similar to the shrine of the summoner's secret mandala. The hall is walking hall. Many TSSS. Many summoners were going in and out of this place. It was extremely busy. 10 red-clothed deacons of the Wanshen sect were rarely seen outside, but at a glance there were already 4 or 5 of them. In the hall of the manager's hall, there were several service windows. Outer disciples of the Wanshen sect were lining up next to those windows to check things like insect crystals. It was easy to identify everyone in the hall. The outer disciples of the Wanshen sect were dressed in a variety of clothes, while the official disciples of the Wanshen sect were all wearing a pure white battle mage robe. On the left shoulder of the mage robe, there was a pure gold beast head that swallowed the shoulder. White symbolized the reflection realm. Apart from the white magician robes, those wearing black battlemage robes with 2 pure gold beast heads and a beast armor heart-protecting mirror on them were all Nether Passage realm disciples of the 10,000 Gods sect. Above the 2, the red-clothed deacons' red robes were even more eye-catching. Only those who had reached the Nether Passage realm, which was the 7 Sun realm, were qualified to be promoted to red-clothed deacons. The disciples of the Wanshen sect in the hall were all calm, stern, and proud. Xia Pingan walked in and met several official disciples of the Wanshen sect, but none of them looked at him directly. What? Meng Yitong was poisoned to death in a restaurant. Xia Pingan was walking toward an information desk across the hall when he suddenly heard someone's voice. Xia Pingan looked in the direction of the voice without batting an eyelid. He saw a summoner in his 50s with white hair, a deep aquiline nose, and a pair of sharp eyes. He was wearing a red-clothed deacon mage robe. He was hurriedly walking down the stairs with 5 white-clothed summoners of the Wanshen sect. As he spoke, the red-clothed deacon's face was filled with astonishment, and his footsteps suddenly stopped on the stairs. That red-clothed deacon was Deacon Ling, who had just separated from Meng Yitong. To be fair, Deacon Ling's voice was not loud. He was just using a normal voice to communicate with the people around him. However, the echo in the hall was excellent. Moreover, Xia Pingan had sharp ears and eyes. Therefore, when Deacon Ling mentioned Meng Yitong, although they were about 100 meters apart, Xia Pingan immediately heard him. This is the news from the city patrol team. After identifying the remains, the one who was poisoned by the black demon poison was Meng Yitong. A white-clothed summoner reported. Which restaurant? That restaurant is not far from Deacon Ling's residence. It's called the 100 Happiness Restaurant. Meng Yitong just reported to me that Chui Li had robbed and killed a fellow disciple. He was poisoned to death in the Immortal City. The impact of this matter is too bad. Chui Li might have already returned to the Immortal City. Immediately inform the city patrol team to search for the suspect Chui Li. Take note, Chui Li might have already entered the Immortal City in disguise. You can use the reflection mirror to identify him. Deacon Ling's voice was filled with killing intent. Yes. Deacon Ling came down from the stairs and hurriedly left with a few summoners beside him. He brushed past Xia Pingan when he was about 20 meters away. Xia Pingan's body was a little shocking. Deacon Ling glanced at Xia Pingan before moving his gaze away from Xia Pingan. An ordinary outer sect disciple was not worth his time. Xia Pingan went straight to a counter right across the hall. Behind the counter, there were two beautiful women who were summoned. They wore long dresses and smiled like flowers as they received customers. I wonder what kind of realm pearl can summon such beauties. Xia Pingan muttered in his heart. May I ask what is the matter, master? When Xia Pingan walked over, one of the beautiful women behind the counter asked. Yes, I want to ask, how can I join the Wanshin sect? You want to join our Wanshin sect? Yes, I heard that the treatment for becoming a disciple of the Wanshin sect is pretty good. There are also various realm pearls and God spring, so I want to give it a try. Xia Pingan said casually. Have you reached the ethereal realm? No. Oh, then you can go to the third window over there and fill in a form to confirm your identity. The Wanshin sect recruited people casually. They did not reject anyone. As long as they were below the ethereal realm, they could become an outer disciple of the Wanshin sect after confirming their identity and cultivation realm and filling in a form. The treatment was the same as what Xia Pingan knew. As long as they had enough insect crystals, they could become an official disciple of the Wanshin sect. Xia Pingan had just written the name of his new avatar, a dragon fantasy, on a form when he saw Liang Tian, who had brought them to the Immortal City, and another red deacon walking in from outside the tower of the manager hall. Seeing the two red deacons walking together, the surrounding disciples of the Wanshin sect saluted and made way. In the world of summoners, strength was everything. You could not respect their identity, but you must learn to respect the strength of the strong. Brother Liang Tian, this matter is a bit tricky. Lord Yu wants us to search for experts who can forge soul tools and various soul tools. He said that the higher-ups urgently need them. However, there are only a few people who can forge soul tools in the Immortal City, and they are all old faces. It is impossible for them to join our Wanshin sect. If they wanted to join, they would have done so long ago. There are many summoners in the Immortal Sea, and I heard that experts who can forge soul tools often go to the Immortal Sea to look for soul-anchoring pearls. Brother Liang Tian and the Red Deacon chatted about official matters as they walked up the stairs quickly. Although their voices were soft, there was nothing to hide. Brother Zhao, do you know why Lord Yu is so anxious to find experts who can forge soul tools? I heard that the Wanshin planet urgently needs soul tools, and there are some strange movements in several abysses. The two did not pay attention to Xia Pingan at all. They walked quickly and chatted softly as they walked up the stairs. Xia Pingan glanced at their backs, then rubbed his chin thoughtfully and smiled. Soul tools, this is my specialty. The orthodox successor of the soul refining secret technique. The Wanshin sect is in urgent need of soul tools and experts who can forge soul tools. Interesting. Chapter 398. Alright, from now on, you are an outer disciple of the Wan Shin sect. As long as you collect 200 Reflection Realm and 1 Nether Passage Realm Insect Crystal, you will be qualified to join the Wan Shin sect and officially become a disciple of the Wan Shin sect. But there is one thing: those insect crystals can only be obtained from killing insects in the underground of the Immortal City. If you bought or exchanged insect crystals, or obtained them from other places, we will not recognize them. Before you enter the Nether Passage Realm, this test will be in effect. The beauty behind the counter received the entry form that Xia Pingon filled out and explained to Xia Pingon in a soft voice. Liang Tian and the red-clothed deacon had already disappeared behind the stairs. Xia Pingon nodded and retracted his gaze. He looked at the summoned beauty in front of him and couldn't help but ask a question. May I know your name? Xia Pingon asked the beauty's name purely out of curiosity. It wasn't because he had any dirty thoughts, because he couldn't think of any realm pearl that could summon such a beauty. The beauty in front of him was in her 20s. She was elegant and refined. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her eyes were like clear water in the mountains. When she looked around, she had an elegant and refined temperament. Her green dress couldn't hide her impressive figure. What was even rarer was that this woman had a dignified and intelligent temperament. When one got close to her, the beauty's body was soft and fragrant, and there was also a fragrance like orchids and musk. It made people have a good impression of her. Such a beauty was also stunning in reality, not to mention she was summoned. Looking at her intelligence, she was much higher than ordinary summoned characters. She was already able to handle some of the Immortal City's official affairs in the manager hall. Before the beauty could reply, Xia Pingon heard someone nearby couldn't help but sneer and discuss. Ha ha, another summoner who is fascinated by this beauty's boundary pearl. A boundary pearl that can summon such a stunning beauty is the most precious and top-level boundary pearl among summoners. It's priceless. Even the Wan Shin sect can only find a few. What is that guy thinking? There are many idiotic summoners like him. Many of them have dirty thoughts in their hearts. They always think that they can summon a few beauties to warm their bed and enjoy their luck with women. If this beauty realm pearl is so easy to obtain, why would Wan Shin sect use it as a frontier? The beauty realm pearl is hard to come by, and the divine will crystal that can fuse with the beauty realm pearl is even rarer. It's already good enough that we can feast our eyes on such a summoned beauty. That's true. The jeers and discussions were not malicious, and Xia Pingon pretended not to hear them. The beauty who was questioned by Xia Pingon glanced at Xia Pingon's face with her beautiful eyes. She then covered her mouth and laughed. You're an interesting wizard. You even want to ask my name. I'm Wang Zhaojun. Wang Zhaojun, one of the 4 beauties? No wonder Xia Pingon was obviously stunned for a moment. He glanced at the woman again, then nodded. Without saying a word, he left the counter and walked outside. Interesting, interesting. Since there's a boundary pearl that can summon Wang Zhaojun, there should also be one that can summon Shi Shi, Diao Chan, Yang Yuhuan, De Xiao Qiao, Kai Wenji, Zhao Fian, Feng Xiaolian, Zhang Lihua, De Zhou Empress, Xiao Zhou Empress, and Li Shishir. If he could summon the 4 beauties, it would be exciting. Ahem, of course, this was just out of curiosity. It was purely an academic study. Xia Pingon didn't have any strange ideas. After walking out of the Hall of Duty's tower, Xia Pingon had already forgotten about the boundary pearl of the beauties. Beauties were good, but in the current situation, survival was the most important. Xia Pingon looked at the square outside and took a deep breath. Then, he strode towards a place in the city. Previously, after killing the 3 mantis blade insects, Xia Pingon had obtained another rare realm pearl. When he killed Ming Tian actually had 2 rare realm pearls on him. Xia Pingan was prepared to find a place to merge these three realm pearls first. Xia Pingan's original plan was to continue hunting mantis blade insects in Black Wind Canyon after fusing these boundary pearls. However, the conversation between Liang Tian and the Red Deacon in the hall made Xia Pingan have other thoughts. He had mastered the strongest soul-refining technique. Since the 10,000 Deities sect was in urgent need of experts with such special skills, he had to think carefully about how to use this information to maximize his benefit. There might be a shortcut to joining the 10,000 Deities sect. He didn't know if it was because he had poisoned Meng Yitong in the city just now, but at this moment there were white-robed sorcerers from the 10,000 Deities sect flying around in the sky of the immortal city. Especially in the direction of the exit of the city, the summoners who left the immortal city seemed to have to be checked by the reflection mirror. If it was in the past, Xia Pingan would definitely be nervous when he saw the reflection mirror. However, that magic tool was useless to him now. Xia Pingan didn't panic. After walking in the city for half an hour, Xia Pingan arrived at the south of the city. He found an inn, rented a courtyard, and settled down temporarily. The guests in the city were all summoners, and summoners needed to fuse with boundary pearls to cultivate. Therefore, the inns and hotels in the city provided residences that were mostly standalone courtyards and villas. Most of them had underground secret rooms for summoners to cultivate. After the waiter of the inn left, Xia Pingan summoned the Black Dragon and Child of Fortune to check the courtyard. After confirming that there were no problems in the courtyard, Xia Pingan went directly to the underground cultivation room in the courtyard. After closing the door, he summoned Xuanwu, an assassin, to guard the door. Then, Xia Pingan took out a boundary pearl that he had obtained from killing the three mantis blade insects. This was an assassin boundary pearl. The words Chao Imo were written in Xiaozhuan on the boundary pearl. There was also a dagger that was faintly discernible in the boundary pearl. A few days ago, Xia Pingan had killed more than 20 mantis blade insects and obtained 7 boundary pearls. Among the 7 boundary pearls, only one of them was a rare divine power boundary pearl that was 3 visits to the thatched cottage. The other boundary pearls were all ordinary boundary pearls, and 2 of them overlapped. This Chao Mo's assassin boundary pearl was only the second boundary pearl that Xia Pingan had obtained in recent days that could be easily fused. At this point in his cultivation, every step he took, every time he fused with a boundary pearl, and every time he increased his divine power, it was not easy. He pricked his finger and dripped his blood on the upper boundary pearl. In the blink of an eye, Xia Pingan was surrounded by a cocoon of light. Xia Pingan opened his eyes and saw a platform in front of him. On the platform there was a pavilion. Around the pavilion, banners were fluttering in the wind. There were many imperial guards, civil officials, and generals gathered. 2 large banners were erected on both sides of the platform. On one side of the banners, the word Lu was written, and on the other side, the word Qi was written. On both sides of the banners, there were thousands of people standing solemnly in formation. On both sides of the pavilion, there were many ceremonial utensils, musicians, and 3 animals for the alliance meeting. This scene, if placed in the spring and autumn era, was definitely the standard for an international conference. Such was the extravagance of an alliance meeting. Xia Pingan stood on the side of the Lu kingdom that was closest to the platform. Opposite him was the Qi kingdom. On the Lu kingdom side, a group of civil officials and generals looked gloomy, worried, and forced smiles. On the other hand, the Qi kingdom's monarch and courtiers were all arrogant and condescending. There were 2 long tables on the platform. Next to the long table on the Lu kingdom side, sat the ashen-faced Duke Zhuang of Lu Jitong. On the other hand, the person sitting on the long table on the Qi kingdom's side was no stranger to Xia Pingan. It was the Duke Huan of Qi Jiang Xiaobai. At this moment, the Duke Huan of Qi Jiang Xiaobai was in high spirits and was laughing loudly. Xia Pingan looked at himself again. He was strong, wearing armor, and standing at the head of the Lu Kingdom's generals. This Chao Mo's body was almost comparable to the strong man he had transformed into. Xia Pingan touched his sleeve, and there was indeed a dagger hidden in it. This Chao Mo was indeed the ancestor of Huaxia's assassins. Chao Mo might not be able to lead troops to war, but his courage and courage were definitely enough. Duke Lu, as long as we sign this treaty, our two countries will be friends for generations in the future. There will be no more wars, and the soldiers of our two countries will no longer have to bleed and kill. This is a great kindness. This treaty will definitely be remembered in history and become a story of our two countries. Ha 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 ha. Jiang Xiaobai, the Duke Huan of Qi, thought that after signing this treaty, the Lu Kingdom would cede a large area of land to the Qi Kingdom again. In the future, the Qi Kingdom would completely rely on him to live. His reputation among the vassals would be even greater, and he could not help but laugh happily. The legend belonged to the state of Qi, but for the state of Lu, such an alliance only left them with humiliation. However, no matter how humiliating it was, they could only accept it. If they didn't sign the alliance agreement, the state of Qi might directly send troops to destroy the state of Lu. Ji Tong looked at Jiang Xiaobai and could only swallow his broken teeth. The state of Lu and the state of Qi had been defeated in 3 battles. The state of Qi was supported by Guanzhong, and the state of Qi was growing stronger day by day. It was a hegemon and was much stronger than the state of Lu. Today, he had to sign the alliance even if he didn't want to. Thinking of the 3 battles and 3 defeats with the Qi Kingdom, Ji Tong could not help but helplessly look at Xia Pingan. He sighed in his heart and was about to pick up the pen. At this moment, Xia Pingan moved. He suddenly stepped out of the Lu Kingdom's rank. Chao Mo had a strong physique, and 1 step of his was equivalent to 3 steps of others. Xia Pingan rushed to the bottom of the steps of the platform of the alliance meeting in 1 stride. With another step, he rushed to the top of the platform and came behind the Duke Huan of Qi, Jiang Xiaobai. He took out the sharp dagger hidden in his sleeve and pressed it against the Duke Huan of Qi's back. Xia Pingan moved so fast and was so close to the platform of the alliance meeting. Moreover, it happened so suddenly that even the guards around the Duke Huan of Qi, Jiang Xiaobai, did not have time to react. He had already kidnapped the Duke Huan of Qi with the dagger. The people of the Qi Kingdom were stunned. No one had expected that a minister in the small Lu Kingdom would dare to harm the Duke Huan of Qi during the alliance meeting. The Qi Kingdom was suddenly in chaos. In the sound of clang, clang, a large group of guards of the Qi Kingdom pulled out their swords and surrounded the Duke Huan of Qi with murderous intent. The people of the Lu Kingdom were also stunned. All the civil officials and generals changed their expressions. Lu Zhuanggong